Well, good evening, everybody. On this amazing Monday evening, Karen and I are so grateful to you for your time, to our subscribers, our Patreon members, to our mods. We're so appreciative to each and every one of you. Thank you always for being with us. We had an amazing event. This young man got married on Saturday. And we had some great people there. You guys know Greg and Dean, Greg from the Behavior Science Unit, and many, 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 many friends and family. It was an amazing, enchanting evening for Mom and for Dad, and we want to welcome our newest daughter-in-law to the family. We're so excited, and we give a shout out to her grandmother, Grandma Nancy in North Carolina. Welcome to the family. We're so thankful. Well, what a panel we have tonight. Bob Gilliam's in the house. John Lamb is in the house, and Dr. Gary Brucato's in the house. And guess what we're not going to do tonight? We're not going to go 5 hours. We're going to promise you we're going to try to keep this under a couple of hours so that everybody can get some rest and we get to share a lot of ideas. Man, oh man, it's good to see you guys. What have you been up to? I know, Bob, you've been out in the yard today.
Yeah, laying pavers in the hot sun is demanding, let me tell you. But it'll be worthwhile in the long run. So a good day.
Awesome. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderfully, Chris. Thank you for having me here. It's actually looks like we're going to get 2 spring days in a row here. So things are looking up.
Fantastic. Dr. Gary Brucato's in the house. Everybody, just turn your TV on and he's there. So it's great to see you, Gary. You've been busy.
True. Congratulations on the wedding.
Thank you.
It looked like a blast.
It was unbelievable. It was off the hook, actually. It was off the hook. And thank you, everybody, for catching Vernon yesterday. What an amazing human being that guy.
One and only.
The one and only. He's a legend. Times five. Well, we've got a lot to talk about tonight. I mean, we want to catch up a little on the Nancy Guthrie case. And then tonight I want to focus on a couple of areas. I've put together a 9-minute video that we'll probably do a start and stop. And I know, Gary, you've got an upcoming special coming up. They called you a profiler. Would you want to fix that, please?
Well, yeah, so you're talking about the special on Nancy Guthrie that Brian Enton did. That's going to be airing Wednesday, 9 Eastern on I think it's PIX, Channel 11 here I don't know what it is elsewhere, but I really hope people tune in. And there is a segment where Ann Burgess and Casey Jordan and I, the three of us, are all doctors in different areas that relate to some aspect of crime or violence or psychology. And the idea is that they ask our opinions, looking over the evidence of the case. You'll see that the ideas are pretty much what people have heard here because they were developed alongside this group. At least my ideas were developed alongside this group here on the interview room, which I'm very proud of. The word profiler is used in the ad that I saw today, the little clip, I mean. But, because people engage in profiling doesn't mean that they're profilers. A profiler is a person who's undergone very specific training from behavioral science. And I think that term gets thrown around. So it would be more accurate to say, I think it was a well-intentioned thing, but I think it'd probably be more accurate to say, it would be more accurate to say something like, they're going to create a profile as opposed to they are profilers. But I think people will find it very useful.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to it.
I'm always controversial on this case, so.
Well, we're looking forward to catching it. They do a great job. And of course, you always do a great job, as well as Bob and John. So tell the audience real fast, and we'll get kicking off here. We'll start with Bob up in the upper right-hand corner of our four square here. Bob, give them a little understanding of who you are and your background real fast.
Well, thanks for having me back, Chris and Karen. Good to be back with John and Gary as well. And shout out to your mods. They're always the best on YouTube. My name's Bob Gilliam. I was a police officer for 36 years. Many of those years I was a detective. Later on in my career, as I promoted, I commanded detective units on 2 different departments.
Awesome. John, in the lower right-hand corner, my buddy, my old boss, in fact. Tell him a little bit about who you are, bud.
And I should have gotten hazardous duty pay for that.
You still are. You're on the program.
To that effect. You'd think after all these years I'd learn. Hi, everybody. I'm John Lamb, and I have over 3 decades in law enforcement. And during that period, I was a CSI, a hostage negotiator, homicide detective, detective sergeant. I still have scars from supervising Detective Chris McDonough. And now I'm a writer. My new book will be coming out at the end of this month, and it's called Bring Out Your Dead. And additionally, it
Which
looks
I
like
wrote a blurb for.
What's
Both
Gary and I wrote a blurb.
Yeah, wonderful blurbs, and in fact, I'm hoping that maybe by the next show I'll be able to. The publisher's formatting it right now, and I appreciate the blurbs you guys wrote.
Yeah.
And I do promise you, I mean, the payments are probably going to have to be monthly, but I will make it worth your while. The other thing I'll mention is that it looks like next month. I've been asked to travel to Los Angeles to do to be interviewed about a murder case from 1984 that I worked.
Awesome.
And that will be on the show Snapped. So
okay.
Still the early stages, but I'm excited about that. So, and it's a delight to be here, and I want to thank the mods and you guys. It's just really great to be back.
Awesome.
Getting famous, Chris. He's going to be at CrimeCon. Probably going to be at CrimeCon before we are.
He should present at CrimeCon. John and Bob would have some amazing presentations there. And of course, the guy above us here, Dr. Gary, give him a little insight, author of The New Evil and many other. And John, you've written how many books? 10?
10, and I'm working on book 11 right now.
11. So their books are always in the links below, everybody. Gary?
So I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist, a researcher at right now at Boston College, where I'm a visiting scholar. I work with Dr. Ann Burgess on a wide array of Forensic Projects, also Dr. Victor Petrecka. I was previously at Columbia Medical Center for quite a long time, studying severe mental illness, mass murder, violence generally, and how these things can overlap. I've written a couple of books. The New Evil is the one that most people know. I'm working on 2 as we speak, one with Chris and another, the manuscript for a follow-up to The New Evil, which I'm very excited about. You'll all be you'll all be getting calls from me to be quoted in there. And I'll just say regarding the special tomorrow that what I mean by controversial, because I already could see people piped up when I said it, is I don't mean that we're saying anything that would be hurtful. I just mean that we put forward ideas that other people don't agree with regard to what might have happened. And it stirs up a lot of people to sort of give their own comments. And that's sort of what we'll be doing tonight, too. So it's that kind of controversy where not everybody agrees. But Chris, I think between the 4 of us, we've got quite a lot of experience. So we're not just taking stabs in the dark, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought because I was on a program and, just so everybody knows, who the Cold Case Foundation is. And the guy that you see here in this photograph is Greg Cooper. And Greg Cooper is John Douglas's protege, but he ran the behavior science unit after John. So it was John and then Greg in Quantico. And Greg is our executive director at the Cold Case Foundation. So both Gary and I and John, I mean, there was 167, almost 200 experts now from around the world that come together and add, insight. So when we talk about profilers, I am not a profiler. My training is behavior analysis. Those that are profilers have gone back to the BAU and they've trained there. I was, in a different program at the time. So they used to send everybody back to the BAU, but they stopped that around 1990, right when I went into the homicide unit. But that said, that picture right there was just Greg at the wedding, and we have been dear friends for 30 plus years. And now that everybody's a profiler on YouTube or wherever, then that word is getting thrown around all over the place. So,
but I stayed at a Holiday Inn. So
yeah, I stayed at a Holiday Inn.
I'm not a profiler. But.
Yes. So speaking of that, let's dive into. So I had a couple of thoughts. Kind of decompressing from the wedding and everything, and one of the things that I kept circling back to is this idea of, remember we talked about one of the last times we were assembling here. We've had so many good ideas thrown around and between everybody, and we did the reenactment of how an officer would respond to when they first got what the detectives would say, what the officer would say, yada yada. Okay. And then we talked about various types of scenarios. I mean, the SA possibility, the financial possibility, the is there one or are there two suspects? I mean, just like all kinds of other theories that are out there. Okay. But one of the things that really has set in here, I think, pretty carefully, is we all ask this question of we needed more information about the victimology and the dynamics of the 2 sisters, right? I mean, that was one of the questions that, how did Savannah and Annie get around? How did they, interact with each other? And I had one of our members send me an email and said, hey, there's a video out there, and I grabbed that video, and I just this was an NBC piece put together about Annie and Savannah. And I just want to have you guys take a look at this, and then the audience, tell me what your thoughts are as this plays, and we'll do a stop, start type of situation here. But let me pull it up here, and we'll get the program started this evening.
Annie's like the blood going through my veins. She's my sister. She's always been there all my life.
My sister and I are like the sun and the moon.
Together we make a whole.
Her sorrows are my sorrows, and her successes are my successes.
Annie and I are really different. I'm loud and a fast talker. She's thoughtful and reflective.
Introspective versus
blabby. For me, Annie and I were more like twins than older sister and younger sister. We were often in very similar clothes. Same outfit, but you'd have red and I'd have blue, or yours would be green and mine would be yellow. Annie and I would be in a fight as little kids, and my mom would separate us and say, go to your room. And then about 5 minutes later, one of us would send a note under the door.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
You know, like, want to be friends again, or what are you doing? When my dad died, our whole family just hung on to each other for dear life because it was such a shock. We were just trying to figure out how to become a family of 4 when we had always been a family of 5. Annie and I were both headed off to college, and we both decided to live at home. And we had a spoken or unspoken pact that on the weekends, even though we were college girls, one of us would always stay home on one of the weekend nights so that my mom wouldn't be alone. That was just something we did together as sisters.
I feel like my mom did such a unique and amazing job to create this foundation for us. To know how to be a good sister is to know how to be a good friend to anyone.
One of the best things about being sisters is you grew up in the same house and you don't have to explain anything. I might say, well, I talked to Mom, she said good morning, so you know.
No matter what's happening, if I need clarity or wisdom, I call Savannah.
Annie has always taught me about generosity. She is as happy for me if something good happens to me as if it had happened to herself, maybe happier.
Okay, so I thought this was a piece from about 5 years ago that NBC had put out. And it was on the cusp of the Bush sisters, writing a book, Jenna and et cetera. First impressions, what's your thought?
Well, it's obviously a puff piece designed to ingratiate the Today audience with the Guthrie family, and that's all fine and well. I didn't really glean that much from it. I have no idea what kind of relationship that Annie and Savannah have today. They, from everything that we've seen since Nancy was taken, they have been united, or at least have given the appearance that they're united and as a family. And so beyond that, I really don't know.
Okay. Bob, John?
The only thing I noticed that while watching them is that Annie's eyes repeatedly shifted right. And that tends to, and I'm not saying that this is holy writ, but tends to suggest imaginative thinking. So I don't know whether she was attempting to create answers that were congruent with her sister. But that was the thing I noticed, that her eyes several times and mind you, we're seeing something edited and we're only catching glimpses, but you'll notice that the eyes are shifting right.
Okay. Doc, anything that caught you?
Well, I feel like I don't really want to comment on the dynamic between the sisters, but what I found very powerful about it was to see Nancy as a young woman and to reflect on the idea that, here she was probably decades ago in those images with not the slightest inkling of what was coming down the pike in terms of her fate. And there's just something about that I found very sad. To see her, struggling through being a single mother, putting up a, fight. God knows what she had to do to make ends meet, this, that, and the other thing. And then the idea being that, she meets the fate that she does in her 80s. I just found that to be the most moving part of the whole thing. For me, the emphasis was on her. It's very interesting, of course, to hear about the sisters and how they're feeling and all of that. But I just found something about her, because she, no matter how you look at it, she comes out of this story, like, by all accounts, really like a purely good human being who just had a terrible thing happen to her. And one way or another, however you look at this story, she was like a pawn in somebody's thing, somebody's game. And it's just, I found that very heartbreaking. I'm sure you all did.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's really insightful, because I thought what struck me was it was almost like this dynamic behavior change when their dad died. And they were both very, very, one is 60, I don't know how old Annie was, but, Savannah was 16. And they made a choice to stay home from, college, not, to attend college at Arizona State, but they lived at home with their mother. And that they would each, Savannah said, over the weekend, they would take turns, and one would stay home with their mother at all time, which kind of projected to me she was almost a broken spirit at that point. And that the two girls now become the caretaker for a little while emotionally for mom. And I thought that one picture right after where they set that picture in of Savannah playing the guitar and Annie, cutting up the salad, you could almost see a transition in her. And the pictures thereafter, you could start sensing that there was something changing. And what I mean by that is everything now seemed to, from that point forward, go into a caretaker role at a very young age. So, Gary, to help us understand what that may or may not mean in the human dynamic.
Well, first of all, times have changed a lot. Decades ago, being a single parent had a very different meaning than it does now. Is much more common, for example, in the period, let's say, from the mid-1960s onward, to be a single parent. And to do so comfortably, because one can work while also managing to have children. But you always want to think about that, about how the times have changed. But it is profoundly difficult to raise multiple children as a single mother. And she never remarried. I have no knowledge of her ever having entered into any other kind of relationship and managed to bring all these kids up and educate them, feed them, and everything else. And so you really get the sense of somebody that must have been a pretty amazing human being. Mm-hmm. And where everybody sort of has want for nothing. And yet we don't really know how the death of a father figure can affect the kids. For example, I remember Savannah saying in an interview, the interview with Hoda, that she remembered her mother being sort of pleasant and positive and so forth, but then hearing her cry privately. Did you guys remember that? When she said that her mother would. So this idea being that, the tragedy is sort of in the closet, because you've got to keep a stiff upper lip. And I think that must have been very interesting in terms of modeling that for everybody. But in terms of the individual effects that the death of a parent figure on children can have, I mean, I can't imagine that it didn't tear everybody apart. I mean, I lost a parent older, in my 30s, and I still feel like orphaned in a way, right, by the loss of. Whenever anything ever happens, I always want to call my father up and tell him about it, so he could say he's proud. The loss of a parent at any age, doesn't matter if you're 80, very, very hard. But there also must have been this looking up to the mom and kind of seeing her as a kind of lionized figure, and a kind of a boss, a matriarch, a person that what she says goes, that kind of thing. And so, I don't really know beyond that. That's, I think, pretty fair, all of that to kind of think about. But I just think the dynamics of the family have always been a kind of black box in this story. And what I've always found very frustrating is that even with this piece that we saw, everybody feels kind of like an archetype, that you don't get that sort of complex reality of people, because nobody is that flat of a character. Everything is, Norman Rockwell and sunshine and lollipops and whatever. The reality is that the people have to be fleshed out to really understand, what went on. And the reason it matters is if some outside person who even vaguely knew the family, or somebody who more intimately knew her, we have no idea, but we all think to some extent knew her, right? We have to understand vulnerability points in the story to get what somebody could take advantage of, or why somebody would be upset, or what somebody was trying to gain. As I said, even somebody who vaguely knew her. And to do that, you have to get the truth of the dynamic. Haven't you guys also been frustrated that it just feels like a kind of black box? Everybody is sort of superficially described.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
John?
It's like a family Potemkin village. It's
Right.
it's literally what when you said archetypes, it resonated with me completely. We have the stoic, noble mother.
Right.
We have, and what we have is almost characters who've been set up. And for those, I've used this reference Potemkin village to your viewers. What it is that during the days of the Russian Tsar, they used to set up fake village fronts along the roadway so that the Tsar and the royal family, the Romanovs, didn't need to see the hovels that the serfs were living in. And so, but that very often I get this sense that we're getting a false front here. Maybe not deliberately, but it may be what they're most comfortable providing.
Or just too flat for reality, that kind of thing. I want to know because, Chris, how in the foundation, we always talk about how a person has their public life, their private life, and their secret life.
Right.
Right. And here we're only on public life. So, and without knowing somebody's, at least the private life, no less the secret life, you really can't start to grasp what the heck might have gone on. That's why I've said for a while now, and Bob, I really want to hear if you have thoughts on the flatness of the story too. But that's why I keep thinking about what was Nancy writing in that diary that she sit out on that porch and write. Remember that comment was made that she would sit out there and write in the journal. But where's the journal? What could that flesh out? I think that would be very valuable for understanding her innermost thoughts. So, but Bob, please, I didn't mean to.
No, I really don't have too much to add, but I will talk about the Today Show very briefly. And I've referenced Megyn Kelly on this show before, and I'll do it again real quick here. Megyn, of course, worked at NBC and the Today Show for a year and a half or so. And she says, she's made this comment several times on her show in reference to the Guthrie case, that the Today Show has a history of wanting their celebrities such as Nancy and even Megyn, when she was on the show, to put themselves out there. And those are her words, to put yourself out there and let the audience.
You mean Savannah, Bob, not Nancy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Savannah.
No, that's all right. You're fine, bud.
And to put yourself out there so that the public gets to know you. And it's part of the shtick on the Today Show to, garner more of an audience. And so, I think both John and Gary are spot on. And, I agree with everything that you've said so far.
Yeah. And, one of the most interesting things I think about that particular piece that we just saw, knowing that, I think the fact that both girls got together and decided to stay home on the weekends so that there was always somebody with their mother, that speaks volumes.
Yeah.
Through their whole college years. I mean, we've all lost people in our lives.
Yes.
But I think there was a tremendous emotional trauma there. It was instantaneous for Savannah, obviously, because, and, you know, being the youngest. But again, the oldest now, you know, Cameron, you know, he's kind of a little more mature. We even see that through the last, you know, things that we've seen him on. But the middle sister has to take care of her little sister. And, you know, what does that do to a social life? What does that do to the developmental time where, you know, you're going to school, but you're not, you know, going out and doing all the other things that everybody else can do? And for me, that would, you know, maybe look into this idea of, okay, was there a resentment being built up over all of these years? Emotional resentment, because it's interesting that one of the things I also want to explore tonight, per the thumbnail, is that 9/11 call when the family goes on, you know, to the house. And by the way, for the record, this evening, I mean, we're not bashing the family in any way, shape, or form. What we're talking about tonight are the victimology, you know, pieces of a particular crime scene potentially, and you have to be honest, and you have to talk about this stuff. You can't dance around, you know, situations. I just showed you pictures of my son's wedding. You know, I mean, Karen's like, you know, keep that off of YouTube. And I'm like, why? They know we were at a wedding. Okay. And you just have to put it out there. It's reality. Okay. And one of the things that I want you to catch real fast is how this whole thing started. This whole case, how it started. And we know that the last proof of life was a family member. I mean, that no matter what anybody says, I'm not even talking about the guy on the porch. Okay. Because, you know, that guy, there's no evidence at this point that guy took her. Unless somebody has evidence of that, I'd like to see it. So at this point, we have to go with who last saw her. Okay. And we know who that individual is. All right. Now, that means there was a narrative. And then you work up to the guy on the porch. Okay. Because once that evidence presents itself, then you can say, okay, who is this person and how does this person fit into this dynamic? Agree or disagree, panel?
Yeah, Chris, you're touching on something that has been one of these little controversies arising from some of the ideas that we've put forward.
Sure.
Which is very, very important, which is that from a logical perspective, it is technically not definitively true that she was ever in that house.
Mm-hmm.
Technically,
on the night of the abduction.
On the night of the abduction, it is entirely possible that the whole thing was staged to look.
And that's why I raised the issue. You guys we've all talked. Everybody's talked about it. Go ahead.
It's very controversial. It caused, you know, lots of people to sort of question it and so forth. But
it doesn't mean it happened. That is
doesn't mean it happened. It's just that it can't be taken off the table. It's got to be probable. It's just logically it has to be considered, because if there is a homicide, and I think in that instance it would be a homicide, where the idea is to eliminate a person and make it look like an outsider did it. And I'm not suggesting who the person close to her could be who did it, even if it was somebody who vaguely knew her. You could, for instance, create a staged situation to give the impression of a total outsider, and you could even, just for fun, set the guy up by telling him that the camera is off and have him stumble into the camera filming him so that he takes the fall for the whole thing. You could do that too, so that everybody spends weeks looking for camera guy when he's really just a hired goon or a person that's a friend of yours or something like that. So I think that you have to put that on the table as a possibility. You also have to put on the table the possibility that she was there and that, something was planned and it all went haywire. That it was just an authentic abduction attempt and it went haywire. For me, that point about staging cannot be taken off the table. And I'm really curious because everybody's been buzzing about it ever since I said that. I mean, it's what our group has been saying. Said it on TMZ, and there's been a lot of buzz about it. Well, could we reiterate and clarify what we mean and talk about it for a minute?
Well, that's why I've raised the issue here.
Yeah, I know, Chris.
This idea, from an investigative analysis aspect, right? We all have to think of different. All four of us and everybody in the chat, everybody has a different opinion, okay? Which is a good thing. Okay?
Right.
However, once you start focusing on what the evidence is presenting right now, and we look at the evidence, that's what we follow. We don't follow the emotion. We don't follow, the control points of, how narratives are going to be played out by producers on NBC
Right.
and all this other stuff. Okay. We look at what the evidence is telling us. And I was asked, before I even go there, what do you guys, any other thoughts that come to you before I move on to the next thought process here?
Just a comment or two, Chris. The staging theory would account for, at least in my opinion, the cool, common, collected attitude and demeanor of Porch Guy. And, much has been made of the pacemaker and the last recorded event on Nancy's cell phone. Well, I posed this to you guys off air before the show today. I haven't heard anything from the FBI or the detectives or any credible information to suggest that they knew that Nancy's phone was at her residence when when that recording was, that point was made on the app with respect to the pacemaker. So as long as the phone is in close proximity to Nancy, it could have been anywhere. Do I have that right? Am I wrong on that? Has anybody heard anything about whether or not the FBI or Pima County has said anything of Nancy's phone and where it was when it made that recording? Where was it?
Well, it's supposed to be at the house because Savannah says it's in her room with her keys.
Yeah, it was found at the house.
Right.
Okay. But that would go along with the staging theory, in my opinion.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And the chat's lit up. I mean, it's 50-50. There are 50% that say they're staging and there's 50% that say no. How's the blood get there? Yada, yada. Okay. Well, we don't know that right now, but John, did you want to?
I just wanted to very briefly, for a crime of this sort, there seems to be an unnecessary number of moving parts.
Right.
We've got pots holding doors open, and we've got blood, and we've got this the Michelin Man showing up on the video at the front door, and we don't really have. I've never seen that with any of the. I've worked 2 abductions and I've worked many murders. I've never seen this level of moving parts, and where I see this, I become wary that maybe somebody is attempting to set up a narrative for us to follow. And as Bob has observed, we really don't know that she was in the house. We only know that because a witness, a extended family member said that he dropped her off. But we don't have any independent corroboration of that. So that is what gives me concerns.
And Chris, before we move on, can we talk about the blood? Because that's the...
Yeah, absolutely. And Gary, you jump on when Bob's...
Yeah.
Yeah, and let me just preface my comments by saying I am not a blood expert. I don't have ever claimed to be one. I've had some training in blood spatter analysis, but I am not an expert. So I want to make that abundantly clear. But it seems to me that it is entirely possible for that blood to have been staged on the front porch, including the aspirated blood. Okay. And you know, I've heard other pundits talk about turkey basters being used, and you know, these little earwax remover deals that you can get at Walmart, and you know, something like that that could have been used to create that sense of blood. I don't know why a suspect would do that, but nevertheless, I just think that it isn't still entirely possible that that blood is also staged and along with the rest of the crime scene.
Well, the implication would be that if that story were true, the implication would be that the place in which the actual crime occurred would be so incredibly incriminating and problematic and point so directly to the person who did it that they had to throw everybody off the track by moving the crime scene to elsewhere, which is a typical thing. But of course, we don't know what that means. Now, what I wanted to say was we have talked about this as one of several possibilities on this program numerous times. When I reiterated our ideas on TMZ, when I reiterate them on the program that you're going to see with Brian Enton, when I talked about it on a separate Brian Enton podcast. And yet what happens is, because there's this 30-second soundbite kind of world we're living in, people isolate the idea about the staging and have pigeonholed me, for example, as being somebody who is wholly given over to that idea. And, you know, so they'll say, this person says this person says that, you know, now I've been assigned to the staging theory bucket. This is, of course, an insult to any intelligent human being, because a thinking person simply says, I can't X out this hypothesis. This cannot be taken off the table. And here are the different buckets that are possible, and this is the most likely. And so I think I just want to say publicly that anybody who thinks that I am wholly given over to a staging theory is sort of insulting my intelligence. That's what I'm saying. So I just want everybody to understand that. And I think that's true of all of us. We're simply saying, I can't X that out. And correct. I think there are other theories, which we now will proceed to, which equally have to be weighed. And I mean, wouldn't you say, Chris? I mean, there is this tendency.
Perfect segue, actually. And chat.
So I think that's
one
fair.
of the mods. If somebody could slow the chat down, that'd be great.
I know, like they're on
it's going by too fast for me too. I can't keep up with what people are thinking. So, Miss Sophia or somebody can slow the chat down. That'd be awesome. Okay, so one of the things that I think we can all agree on, everybody, I mean, all of our TIR members, all our friends here, is that the last proof of life was this drive from home and then drops mom off and she goes into the house. That's the narrative right now. Would we all agree with that?
Are you talking about the return from Annie's house?
The return from Annie's house, right.
We have no objective witnesses. We have no independent corroboration that she, in fact, returned to the home.
Right.
The last proof of life is when the Uber driver drops her off at her residence.
Okay. At Annie's.
At Annie's house.
Yes, at Annie's. That is the last independent proof of life.
And that is really important to understand for the audience, because at this point, then, everything forward of that Uber driver is a narrative.
Yes.
And we who are on this panel have experienced many, many narratives in our time. Okay. And now let me give you the distinction between a homicide investigator and a profiler. I'm going to break this down real simply. Okay. A homicide investigator actually goes to the carcass on the Serengeti and decides, wow, I wonder what this could be. Is it a leopard? Is it a lion? Is it a cheetah? And you have to get into the mind of the leopard, lion, and the cheetah while you're at the Serengeti and in the Serengeti. And then once you figure out what that piece of the puzzle is, you get to go put that lion in a cage for a moment. And then they ask you to go in and sit down with the lion and ask you and have them tell you why they attacked that carcass. And by the way, you don't get to make mistakes. Because if you make the mistakes, then the herd comes after you and tears you apart when you're telling your story. Now, at the conclusion of a trial, that lion goes into another cage forever. That's when a profiler is called to come in and sit down with the lion and get their story about what they did and how they did it. But a homicide guy goes to the next carcass. And you do carcass after, dead animal after dead animal after dead animal. It just keeps going. And then you put those dead animals into the zoo where they can be studied. Here's the difference. Profilers don't stand over the carcass. They stand over the lion after it's been captured. Now, how do I know that? Because I was just with the guy over the weekend who ran the behavior science unit. And I bounced this analogy off of him, and we started laughing. He goes, of course. That's correct. So that's the difference. I hope that clarifies, some misunderstandings somewhere. So let's go back to the narrative here. We now have narratives. And now I'm going to show you a paradigm shift in the dynamics of two sisters, how we started out here. And it's all going to be predicated upon tonight's show, a 911 call.
Called me and I said, is everything okay? Mm-hmm. And she said, no. She said, Mom's missing. And I said, what? Yeah. What are you talking about? She said, she's gone. And she was in a panic. I was in a panic. I'm like, call 911. Yeah. She's like, I did. We've called them. They're here. And we thought that she must have had like some kind of medical episode in the night, and that somehow, the paramedics had come because the back doors were propped open, and that didn't make any sense. We thought maybe they came and there was a stretcher and they took her out the back. But her phone was there and her purse was there and all her things. Yeah. And it just didn't make any sense. So, Annie and Tommy had already called all the hospitals, but then I'm like, I'm going to call the hospital. So then I started calling the hospitals, and the police were there and talking to her at the same time. And it was just chaos. Yeah. And
okay. I've never liked that narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Did anything jump out at anybody?
Well, we discussed this before, but why would Savannah have to call the hospitals again if Annie had already done that?
Okay.
We don't know that any of the information she's providing is is accurate. And I don't know why my screen has gone blurry here.
Just move your hand up towards your camera.
Okay.
It's probably an autofocus.
Well, I'll work on this in a second. Just continue my thought. Where did she receive this information that the wallet was there and the phone was there? It's what she's stating is merely supposition based on information provided by, we're assuming, Annie. And the idea that there's pandemonium, I've been to plenty of missing persons, and pandemonium would not be a word that I would ordinarily use.
Gary?
I always love the word pandemonium, John. It's the capital of hell in John Milton's
Capital of hell.
Yes,
Abandon hope, all ye who enter was the sign at the entrance.
Yeah, from Dante. But I think having worked with a lot of victims, and particularly people who are acutely dealing with a recent tragedy, recent violence toward a family member, is that one of the things that can happen is that a person, honest to God, remembers something a certain way, but it's been affected by the stress or by what one wishes to recall. Or, I mean, a simple example is I interviewed a number of people who were survivors of 9/11, an event that was very powerful in my own life. And one of the things I was absolutely fascinated by was how many people remembered it, that they went back in to save people. And there was no objective evidence that had ever happened. They just couldn't bear probably the idea that they didn't. Or another example is that a lot of them will say, I knew as soon as the first tower fell that it was a terrorist attack. No, you didn't. Nobody knew that. They knew only when the second one fell. At first, they thought it was some colossal accident that a plane had crashed into. I remember it like it was yesterday. So I think that people do that, and that's a very well-intentioned thing. It's just that under that much stress, that's why eyewitness accounts are so problematic. I mean, you all know that, of course, right, from your own work, that two people totally stressed out seeing something can swear something happened. And so I always question narratives like that, because when people remember events, they remember them as if they happened in a much cooler-headed manner. I said this, and then we had a chat about that. What probably was really happening is that everybody was hysterical, right? You get what I'm saying? I mean, that drives more with my experience of what really happens, but I know how people remember things when tragedies happen. And it's partly a psychological mechanism. I don't know if it went on here, but where I see it, it's the mechanism is, if you make a logic out of it, then it wasn't that random. Because if you realize that it was random, it's too scary. So you have to remember it, that like there was a thing that if I didn't do it, this tragedy wouldn't have happened. Because otherwise it's too terrifying. You guys understand what I mean? It's like
what, Gary? You're what an author once wrote: man isn't a rational animal, he's a rationalizing animal. And that is I think is almost what you're talking about here.
Yes, and I think by doing that, it makes the terror of the event a little less scary. It's also why some people engage in self-blame when there's a tragedy, because if you think that you had something to do with it, then you have power over it. If I just don't do that again next time, this thing won't happen. And so it's the way the brain tries to make meaning out of a terrifying event. So I just think when you're hearing somebody remember an event like that, just hear it through the lens of, that's how it's being emotionally recalled, but it's not a tape recorder. Memory is not a tape recorder, particularly during traumatic events. I mean, and you guys all know that. You ever see people on the witness stand say things very differently than the way they said them when you interviewed them at the crime scene?
All the time. Yeah.
Right. So, it's the way it goes. Right.
So Gary, do you think Savannah is blaming herself in any way?
Well, she says that when her brother talked to her, that he says, that it might have been because of her. And I found that to be one of the most heartbreaking moments in the entire interview. I really felt that. I thought there was a palpable thing that really struck me as an empathic human being, that I can envision if something like this happened, no matter what the reason was that it happened, wondering if I, as the most prominent and probably the most wealthy person in the family, had anything to do with the selection of my mother. And that's what was implied, that she was abducted. Isn't that the story, that it is possible she was abducted and you had something to do with it, sweetie, that kind of thing. And so I think, yeah, she probably does wonder and feel a lot of pain about that. And I don't know what you guys think, but I found that part of the interview to be really authentically very painful.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, and I've said this before, but the NBC or the Today Show producers or the powers to be there at the Today Show have given all of their celebrities, all of their on-air people, some training through a private security company, anti-stalker training, if you will, and taught them how to or how not to engage with people that may or may not be stalking them. And according to Megyn Kelly, that extends or can extend to the immediate family too. So it's quite possible that it wasn't just Savannah that received the training. It could have been Nancy, Annie, Cameron, and perhaps even Tommaso. So I think that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about probably what didn't happen and see if it makes sense. Because you know how I am.
Probably what didn't happen. Oh, I see. Okay. I know this game.
You know how I am.
Yes. The Chris
Okay.
game.
A profiler would know this game.
A profiler would know this game. Yeah.
One who profiles would know this game. Let's put it that way. One who engages in profiling but may not be a profiler.
Okay, so we've got, the 911 call that goes into dispatch. We've talked about that in the past. I think we all surmised, we all know what the patrol officer would have done if he would have gotten on the scene. We actually reenacted it out of how they would have checked and would have checked for the CAD and all this other, all the stuff to make sure there wasn't a medical call, a medical aid to the house that night. We all agree with that?
Yeah, and that the first several hours, they were in search and rescue mode. They were not in crime scene mode. They had, for everything that we know, they were in search and rescue mode and was not looking at this as a crime.
Okay.
Which suggests they didn't see the blood on the front porch, which I find a conundrum.
Well, you're getting ahead of me, but I love
All
you
right,
for that.
sorry.
No,
You know
you're
what?
good.
Not
You're
because I'm a
good.
profiler, I'm an amateur filer.
Stay there. Okay, so now I think all of us know that the first 911 call would have been made by Nancy herself.
Yes.
I'm having a mental health incident, and you would have heard dispatch say, 911, what's your emergency? Hi, this is Nancy Guthrie. I live at so-and-so, such and such. I'm having a medical emergency. I need to have an ambulance. I need to have blah, blah, blah. Right? You guys agree or disagree?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it was, yes. If the original event was indeed a medical call.
Okay. And that would have also been recorded, which would have made sense because the next morning when they show up, mom's not here, 911, what's the emergency, yada, yada. Okay. You know who else wasn't called? And here's what doesn't make sense. The girlfriends. The reporting party who said mom didn't show up for church. There's no conversations anywhere that have been public that said, and we called her girlfriends who called us to come over and check on mom. And we got here, she's not here. They did not call back and say, do you know anything about, did she call you? Did somebody come get her? Any of that stuff does not exist at this point. Thoughts? Gary, I see you leaning back into the dark.
Yes.
Here.
Well, you're reminding me of the famous Silver Blaze story, Sherlock Holmes story, where Sherlock Holmes makes the remark about the dog barking in the night. And they say, but the dog didn't bark in the night. And he says, that's the curious incident. In other words, it's the absence of a thing that is more curious than the presence of a thing sometimes. That's sort of what you're suggesting, right? That you don't see the barking in the night that one would expect in the situation. It's the absence of a thing that you're interested in.
The next thing the patrol officer would have said is, who did you call or how did you get here? Well, the girlfriends called me for virtual church. Okay, call them back and see if your mom in any way, shape, or form called them last night if there's any of that incident taking place. Okay? Because if the narrative is beginning to say, well, the reason the back doors are propped open is because we're inserting a medical event, insert here, okay, then the one thing you're going to do, police work 101, is start connecting those dots and verify that those dots are connecting correctly. To John's point about the blood. Okay.
Okay, I have some more thoughts on that, but go ahead.
Okay.
Great.
And so now you've got this concept that says, right now it's a black hole out there from an investigator's side. The sheriff, for some reason, is not talking about how the family got in, how the family found the house, other than what we hear from Savannah, is that the doors were propped open. But now we get into this, okay, well, let's really talk about the 911 call. What was said on the 911 call, we don't know. They've not released that. So they're holding that back for a reason. They're holding back how the point of entry was made by the family for a reason. And so then we add into that narrative, insert here, well, the back doors were left open. She always leaves her doors open. And we've talked about that at length. But I think I've got a problem with the fact that the front door looks like Fort Knox. It's got a big, huge grate on it and 4 lock mechanisms. And guess what? So does the back door. We know that now. We can see it in that photograph. And so we're to presuppose that the suspect leaves the back doors, or mom leaves the back doors open, but not the front doors.
Because burglars never come in through back doors.
Right. They always go in and out through the front door.
Yeah, and they wear masks and striped shirts.
Right.
I mean, this just doesn't make any sense.
Right. Well, right. Keeping it right. We're all thinking open-minded here in the chat. What do you guys think? Okay. We love your ideas. Please jump in. But does that make any sense to you? Gary?
I mean, I think the points you make about the front door have been a little underrated in the discourse on this case. I remember when you and I and John were on the lab, the Just Yeses program, and like a kind of bombshell, you introduced into the conversation a point about the bolting of the front door that was kind of like a lightning bolt, because it left us all going, how did nobody else think of that? And it was so fundamental that, and I really think it would be worthwhile even to talk about it a moment here, because it really alters the way one conceptualizes everything that might have gone down, because you just don't understand how that door could be bolted on the way out, kind of thing without. I mean, so maybe you can. I mean, Bob, did you hear Chris's theory about the bolting of the door? I thought it was really remarkable. John, didn't you think so?
Yeah, I thought it absolutely was that,
Right.
as Chris laid out, why are the doors bolted? What was the abductor concerned that someone was going to break into the house later? It makes no sense. And the other thing and I'll let Bob finish up here,
Right.
is if I'm the first deputy on the scene and we have very rapidly eliminated the potential that Nancy has been removed to a medical facility, yet somehow this notion continues to retain life. I don't understand that. But if I'm the deputy walking around the house doing a preliminary assessment of the residence, and I see that blood at the front door, I'm going to know right then and there, based on the fact that we've already ascertained medical services were not at the residence. We don't have a walkaway. We have a crime scene here. So why are we 2 hours after the fact still wandering around in search and rescue mode when we need to be in investigative mode?
Okay, so
Right.
we're leaping into the crime scene, in my opinion, a little too fast. All right, from the initial call. So if you remember, I think it was Sergeant Cross and maybe the SWAT lieutenant, and I'm sorry I can't recall his name, but I've seen him on Enton's show and a few others, and he has talked, and they, I guess, have talked about the number of search and rescues that they do for walkaways and missing persons, many of them being elderly. So if you're the first deputy responding to this in Pima County, knowing that these are regular type of calls, you respond there and you get a statement from Annie and Tommaso. You may or may not see the back doors open because we really don't know when those doors were opened or propped open. And you start walking around. One of the first things that you're going to do is you're going to go with the family and you're going to make a thorough search of the entire residence, inside and out. And it sounds to me like that's what they did. Okay. And it's my understanding that a uniformed deputy was the first one to discover the blood on the front porch. Okay. So if you're a patrol deputy or even a patrol sergeant and you've responded to many of these, you may still be in search and rescue mode because Nancy's elderly. We know that. She has mobility issues. Did she fall and hit her head? She's delirious and she's walked away from the home. So we're still in search and rescue mode. We're not in crime scene mode yet. All right. And you're getting statements from Annie and Tommaso. Yes, she is, and they've detailed her mobility issues to the deputies. So I don't know if that takes 2 hours. I don't know if that took 4 hours in this case, but just because you have the blood on the front porch at that point in time, okay, would not be a huge red flag to me, given the information that I have as a patrol deputy.
Okay, I'm going to push back just for a second.
Hey,
Bob.
go ahead. Please do.
You're that patrol deputy. What do you do?
I told you what I just did. I'm going to make a thorough search of the residence,
Okay,
the
but
yard,
you find the blood.
everything.
You find the blood.
Well, at that
You're going to
point,
follow that blood trail, right or wrong.
okay, if I'm in search and rescue mode, I may not do anything with it at that point. All right, I'm just telling you reality. I get it. I understand. Yeah.
So you find the blood. Okay, I'll tell you what I would have done. This is from my patrol. If I was a patrol guy, right? And what I have done as a patrol guy, as you have, as all of us have, you find that blood and you start following that blood trail.
Well, sure, of course, yeah.
And guess what? It stops.
Yeah.
At the end.
The next thing you do is 3 Kings Station O. I need a supervisor here ASAP.
It goes to the end of the sidewalk and stops at the railing.
Okay, it's a great clue, and I agree. I know where you're going.
Bleeding from the head or the nose or the face,
But
you're going to still have blood trail going across that dirt.
You're still in search and rescue mode because maybe she wrapped her shirt around it or something.
Right.
I don't
but
know.
You're going to follow the blood trail because that's where the body's going.
Yeah, I'm just telling you that this is a likely scenario for that first couple of hours.
I understand.
I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I'm saying that that's a likely scenario, and everybody has glossed over this. I keep coming back to it because it is very, very relevant in this case, especially with the blood, of course.
Which part? Meaning,
well, I'm talking about the search and rescue aspect. We still don't know, or at least I don't know, how long it took. My understanding is it took them several hours before they started calling detectives in.
Okay, but here's the other side of it, right? And now I'm going to speak from as a dog handler, former dog handler. Okay, I'm going to put the dog scent. I'm going to put the dog on that blood, and I'm going to hook him up. And as you guys know, Irk, I'm going to hook him up. I'm going to give him the command zoop, and he's going to go down, and he's going to,
And they did that.
Okay,
and they did that with the Border Patrol.
Did they follow the blood trail?
We don't know.
We don't know.
Well, but Nancy's shirt was found days later, of course, on the front walkway, and they used that shirt apparently as a sniff. Yeah. Right. So it was right there in close proximity to the blood.
Right, but here's the point that I would offer. Here's the point. That blood trail ends at the end of that, according to all the information that we have. It goes from the front door to the end of the walkway there. If she was bleeding from the head or something severely wounded, which we know she was, or something is going on there, okay, we know there would be additional blood leaving that front porch and going across that dirt if she was a walkaway. I'm just using common sense as a walkaway. Okay. And you would follow that. You would also now start seeing a transfer of additional evidence, potentially footprints. If she was delirious in the middle of the night, she doesn't have her shoes on, hypothetically, because even Savannah says, well, she didn't have her shoes on. Okay.
Well, how does she know that?
Well, that's a great question. That's another thing. Insert here. We'll go back to that later. Okay. But now you're going to have some potential footprints going out there, human footprints, and bear footprints. Those are even better. I think we can all agree to that. And that's why you have Bortec there. Those guys do that all day long. And you've run those teams. They're the best in the world. They know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with them.
I know. No, you ran them. I know that. They're your team guys.
And so, but here, that all takes time. And we know from what Nanos told us in the initial press conference, the first one that he had, that they called out their search and rescue team. That takes time. Okay.
Right.
So the gates propped open, the doors propped open with the flower pots, that could have been done by the search and rescue team for all we know.
But that was told to Savannah by Annie.
Okay, but I get that, but
and
that's how Annie's
not even there yet.
Well, we don't know who put it there. I will say this, and this may just come down to a question of preference, Bob. Routinely, if we had a missing walkaway in Oceanside or a missing child, if it went any length of time, detectives were dispatched because the presumption was, and this was later, this was after you left, but when I worked crimes of violence, I was called out on numerous instances because the notion was, what do we lose by having trained investigators there? And they may look and find something and say, maybe this isn't a search and rescue operation. I'm not questioning their decision, but
yeah, and I totally agree with you, John. I'm not disagreeing with anything that Chris or John or anybody else has said. I'm just setting the stage for a different scenario.
Understood.
That likely occurred. Okay, and we're glossing over that. A lot of people are glossing over it, and just because It's obvious to us now, the chain of events. It may not have been obvious to the responding deputies immediately. Okay, that's my point. That's my entire point in bringing this up.
Okay,
And
makes sense.
that is that's a very important point when we're analyzing the crime scene and what had happened. Doors held open with the pots and blood and all of the crimes, what we now know as a crime scene. It may not have been that apparent to those deputies in the immediacy that we are giving this evidence.
Well, and they've said,
totally
remember,
understand.
your sergeant said, Chris, that the level of experience among the deputies there
That's where
is low. And the other thing is there may even have been a departmental unspoken attitude of you don't call the detectives out unless you've got, unless you can point to something and say, absolutely 100% we need detectives. They may have had a different philosophy, but again, I forget the sergeant's name, talked about the fact that you have rookies training rookies.
Yeah, Sergeant Cross. Aaron Cross.
But by implication, the brother who wasn't even there knew more than the people who were investigated on the ground when suggesting that it seemed like an abduction for money.
Well, again, that's insert heroes. That's what I'm going to start calling these. Okay. Well, we'll just start calling.
But you get what I'm saying? I mean, that's odd.
John knows me.
Page tabs.
Yeah, page tab. Insert here. That's a great point, Gary, because as Bob is saying, let's run. We'll stay with that as a possibility, as a scenario here. It could be very, very valid. Makes sense, right? That the patrol guys get there and they go, okay, it's a walk away. Let's go. Okay. So then we go now to the second piece of this, this particular scenario, and I'm going to go back to the car. Okay. I'm going to go to a car. And I mentioned this recently with somebody. I said, well, first of all, if this guy or gal or whoever it is, one or two, I think there's more than one, personal opinion. Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
I think we all agree on that.
Yeah. Okay. So
absolutely.
We think
despite people disagreeing with us, I think even this is where your door point comes in, Chris.
Well, and that's where
the door point is very important when you think about how many people were involved.
And not only that, but just backing up, Gary, to where the pre-surveillance. Okay. If a suspect, the whole reason I think they're looking for, going back all the dates, it is much easier to find a car than it is a body. If you find the car, you will find the body because she was transported out of that house and disappeared. And so that means either A, she's nearby because she can't walk very far, or B, she was put in a vehicle and transported out of there. Okay. I think there's been too much attention on finding the guy at the porch and not enough attention on finding the car that the guy may have had to get to the porch.
Now, particularly since there are only two major highways, two major thoroughfares that lead in and out of that neighborhood.
Perfect. Okay, so now I think they're going back and looking through, and the reason they want all that video is because if they see him multiple times coming to the house to surveil, that means he also probably brought the vehicle into the environment. And I think they're narrowing down the types of cars that are coming and going in that neighborhood and deciding, okay, here's an anomaly. And, we just did that in the Michael Vaughn case in Idaho, where, we had there was hundreds of cars. And next thing you know, there's one car at the splash pad, and it just happened to be Stacy Wander's car. okay, who was just bound over, by the way, so I can talk about it. Okay. I think that's the same scenario here. If you've got this person doing pre-surveillance,
February 11th.
September, right, the 11th and the 24th, right? You've got January 11th, you've got February 24th. Well, that guy's coming through those flock cameras to get into that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they're going to narrow him down. Because you're going to see that car multiple times coming in on the 1st, on the 24th, and on the 11th. And it's just a matter of let's play elimination. Okay. Now, the second problem that I think we should discuss here, or at least, conversation piece here, is where do you park that car? Not talking about, the porch guy or anything like that. Let's just talk about that car. Okay. Well, if your plan is to take the victim out of the back, i.e., you're going to prop the doors open and all this other stuff, well, logically, you would think, well, let's park in the back. Okay. Or go ahead.
Or the car is parked up the street with an accomplice inside of it, and you're going to use that two-way radio that you have in your pocket to call that person up once you're ready for them.
Great point. But then why take her out the back?
Well, you started to say it. You pull the car up close to the back, and that would make more sense to me than taking her out the front door.
Which wouldn't be visual. There wouldn't be the opportunity if you're in the back. There isn't visual access from a passing vehicle on the street.
Bingo.
Mm-hmm.
So insert here. Where did that narrative come from?
The family.
Okay. Common denominators for me. Okay. If we were to keep a scorecard, we know who was the last person to see? The family. When you guys got here, what did you see? All the other stuff, right? We just keep checking little blocks, little numbers across the thing. Okay. Or let's play devil's advocate scenario number 2. Okay. Let's say the guy's up the street, the walkie-talkie's in play. I think that could still be a scenario personally. Okay. Something changed that just the individual took her out the front door. Now, that could have been, I can't make it out to, I can't get around to the front, I'm sick, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Hypothetically. But now we've got 4 lock mechanisms on the front door. 2 on the interior door, 2 on the exterior door. I want to know if that deputy saw those front doors locked or open, or if he was told they were locked or open.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the condition of the lights inside the house.
Bingo.
Right. Yeah. A lot of information from inside the house. I totally agree. And is that security door, is that a keyed deadbolt on both sides of the door, or does it have a finger lock, if you will, on the inside, so that you can, obviously if you're inside, you just come and open it. But if you're leaving, or anyone on the outside would have to use a key to disengage the deadbolt, correct?
Right.
So I would want to know that information. We have none of it, unfortunately, but yeah, I mean, all those observations, and when you're looking at it as a crime scene, once again, these things are obvious to us, right? But when you have that search and rescue hat on, because you've been to these a million times as a Pima County deputy, there's going to be a delay. And that's apparently what happened in this case. Okay. Even with the blood being located on the front porch, even with the blood. So,
okay, because it was 2 hours later that Annie calls Savannah. and says what she did. They called the hospitals, and she says in there, in fact, we just heard it a moment ago, but let's hear what the sheriff says.
Disbelief.
How cold did it get? Oh, she was missing overnight, I take it? She was.
Well, she was last seen at about 9:30, 9:45 last night.
9:30, 9:45. Do you know how cold it got last night? Is that a concern?
You know, you guys are going to know
Okay.
that better.
Is that a concern, though?
That's one of the first things you do when you get to a scene.
I'm cold. Yeah. No, it's,
So when
obviously,
she was last seen, a family had dropped her off at home, is that correct?
she was last seen by family at 9:45, at 9:30, 9:45. Is what we're-
And did they see her in the home?
Yes.
Okay, so that is a pretty clear question and a pretty clear answer. Did they see her in the home? Yes.
Well, they said they did.
Narrative insert here. Okay. There is no ambiguity about that statement and that question. And by the way, they're already engaged in the search and rescue for the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, to me, that again, we go back to the minutia details and we start thinking about, okay, if she's in that house, what are those data points? Okay. I had an astronomer friend who emailed me and said they looked up the sequence of the moon that evening at 0200 at 2:00 in the morning. When you look at the video and you see the shadow of the suspect walking up to the porch, this astronomer said the sequence of that event was approximately 0200 hours for the shadow to be cast in the position that it was and the position of the moon. Okay. So now I think we can narrow down that guy was on the porch in that video, walking up to it with the full moon behind him. And it's 2:00 in the morning on the front porch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why is he doing that?
Well, of course, we don't know. Was he staging the front porch? Or
I don't
was
know.
Yeah.
I'm just asking the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was
I
he?
hate it when you do that to me, Bob. That's
Was
why
he?
I don't-
I mean, since he does now, admittedly, it's a very brief video clip.
Now I got to find Bob's motor picture of him in boots. Finish your thought, John.
What does he do other than present himself to be viewed by the camera? If I'm there ostensibly as part of either an abduction or to commit an elimination crime, why am I stopping to look into the camera? I mean, it's almost like he's vamping so that he can be seen. So I lean toward, almost in some respects, this being a diversion.
Gary, jump in here. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm curious what you guys thought about the point that I made earlier, that if there really is a sort of chef, as I've said all over the place, and then the cook, the waiter, is it possible that the chef tells the waiter that the camera is off, and then he's caught off guard to discover that it isn't, and then has to make this pathetic attempt to try to get it off? I'm just curious what you guys think about that, because if there is a mastermind person here, I don't think he gives a flying leap about the goon or the person that might be the helper. Now, and incidentally, along those same lines of we're only considering a hypothesis, not a fact, I would also say that it is entirely possible that chef and waiter are one and the same. It's just that, which is a point, Bob, you've made. It may be simpler, right? So, but just entertaining a hypothesis, I'm curious what you guys think about the possibility that the guy on the camera was authentically shocked to discover that it was on. because he was expecting it to have been turned off by someone else.
Well, how would he know it's on? Is there some sort of light indicating the camera is active?
Maybe a motion detection related thing or something
Maybe.
that has him
Bob made
waiting.
a good point, months ago about that camera would still be rolling on because it's on a battery. It's a battery system.
Yeah, it's not disengaged. He even if he put it in his pocket and walked away, it's still rolling. But
It's still running.
Monk's Intrigue brought up a great point on your show, Chris. I believe
That was
it was
an
on the
interesting
show.
episode. Yeah, interesting episode.
Yeah, and it had to do with the blinking of Porch Guy, okay, or the lack of blinking, if you will. Now, I did see one blink, or something that I thought was one blink, but there was a very distinct lack of this guy blinking. Now, Maureen brought this up initially, that she believed that a good chance this guy could have been under the influence of a drug. And if you're under the influence of an opiate, and I'm not talking about falling down high, I'm talking about just enough to take the edge off and calm your nerves. Your blinking is slowed as well. Okay. And it's not just opiates. Some other drugs will do that as well, but that's a real thing. So, okay. So, that could account for the cavalier attitude on the porch. It could account for not blinking, and you also, as we know, being trained in identifying persons under the influence of drugs, you're fixated. You can easily become fixated on an object, right? So was he fixated on that camera at some point? Okay, just a point.
Yeah, no, I remember, some of those ideas, and it'll be interesting. But okay, so now we know around approximately, according to, what the science would tell us, right? The projections of shadows and all this other stuff based on positioning. And by the way, that's why I think it's always important. That's one of the things I loved about living by the ocean is, we had access to, UCSD, San Diego State. We had a lot of really smart people down there. Scripps Oceanography. I mean, the Jonah Salk Center. I mean, as you guys know, when you work homicide, you can just pick up the phone and you could get Roger Hegler, a forensic, anthropologist, and boom, he'd be there, and whatever it took to get there. Okay. And so when I heard about the moon situation, I thought, okay, we may have some, time here. So at 2:00 in the morning, that's approximately, according to this projection, of when the individual could have been up on that front porch, which is kind of also confusing. Because if mom has left the doors open in the back, okay, then now all he has to do is go around the back, and boom, the doors are open, and he's in the house. Okay. So I started thinking about that a little bit more as well. And on the kitchen door, she has not the exact, but a similar screen lock door type of door. It's a screen door. The other doors, there's another door back there. It's a blue one. That also has 2 locks on it. A deadbolt and a key bolt. Okay. So why is it so important that insert here narrative, the doors are left open, mom leaves the doors open? Why was that narrative important? I started asking myself.
Because I lived in the desert, Chris. You don't leave your doors open. I mean, not unless you want to have a live participation in Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
Okay. I'm with you. Okay. But at some point, though, that's got to be part of the narrative, because that has to flow into the medical alert.
Mhm.
Okay. That's got to be the narrative that the suspect, if it wasn't a medical alert, according to Savannah, it didn't make sense. That means there had to be a secondary reason that the suspect somehow got into this house, because it sounds like there was no signs of forced entry. I have a problem with that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just have a problem with that, with this idea of an 84-year-old woman, to your point just a moment ago, John, living near Mad Max in the desert.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if we just look at the videos pre and post, look at all the creatures that are walking around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning with backpacks, and the internet has lit up with, people walking backwards from neighbors, and living in, houses across the way and surveilling in the tree house behind Nancy's house until it was ready, and they got on the radio and the suspect shoots up. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on. But there's not enough common sense to say 84-year-old women just don't lock their or forget to lock their doors every single night.
Or leave the doors open.
Or leaves the doors open. Right.
Particularly at the end of January. It's cold in the desert, and I'm shocked. Well, maybe nobody told Sheriff Nanos what the temperature was, but what's the first thing we do when we arrive at a scene that potentially could involve death? We get meteorological foundation.
Right.
What way's the wind coming from? What's the temperature? What's the relative humidity? These are things that go into the beginning of a homicide follow-up report.
Yeah. And so we have the narrative now again, where I guess where I'm going here is on this 911 call is all of this is generated from a sequence of like a story. Okay. Which leads me to this next
And who
piece.
called in the missing report?
The family.
You won't, can you say who?
No, I don't have that name.
Okay. And
I'm going through some talking points for the family. I want to make sure I cover them. I'm not somebody who does well with the script.
Okay.
He's precious, isn't he?
He's a gem.
But right? From an investigative analysis aspect, I think we're all just following a bouncing ball here. Okay. That was the sheriff. If you guys didn't see it on a show we did before, that was the sheriff saying, I want to make sure I get the talking points down for the family.
For the family.
I don't do good with a script.
Well, you've just told us you're working from a script.
Right. And so all this other noise, again, I think John and all of us would be sitting in the room going, what are we getting? What's going on here? Hey, Sheriff, are you what? And so maybe this is why they missed the bouncing ball in the beginning, Bob, to your point.
Mm-hmm.
That the deputies that got there they're told mom walked away. And guess what they don't do? They don't question it.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here. Move along.
Yeah. And if they're inexperienced, and we don't know, I'm not going to denigrate these deputies.
No,
I'm sure they do a great job. But if they don't have the experience, as John has kind of posited, then yeah, it's going to take them a little while to assess. And we don't even know if there were multiple deputies. There was probably one, two, eventually, and then it would require a supervisor to respond to the scene in order to call out a search and rescue team. And that may not even be a sergeant. They may have to have authority from the watch commander, which is probably a lieutenant, to call out a search and rescue team and or detectives. So,
yeah.
So we have a huge delay here. And by the way, I just got a text from Maureen, and she's watching this show, and she agrees with me 100%. I just want to make that point. So
That's fine.
The sheriff.
I'm just poking you a little bit, Chris, but
I'm good.
Does the sheriff impress you as somebody that if you disagreed with him in the organization, that he'd say, please share your thoughts with me? If you disagree with me, it's important I hear other viewpoints. Does this guy impress you as being that sort of manager of a law enforcement agency? Because I've worked for a guy like him, okay? And once he's come to a conclusion about something, well, he doesn't want to hear anything you have to say. So there may be also part of the problem is whatever it is that people down below were recognizing, he's already got his mindset. He's already locked in on what's actually happened.
Yeah. And, I don't know. I roll back on a 90% solvability rate for those watching. Okay. I don't know, we'll just take how do we get her out of the house, and the idea is that she was thrown over the shoulder. Okay. Let's just address that elephant in the room. First of all, you have 2 doors on the front of the house, 4 lock mechanisms. If you have her over the right shoulder, that means you have to pull the front door left or right to left. And then you have to push the second door after you open it right or left to right. They're opposite doors. So if she's over the right side, that means the blood pool and droplets are on the wrong side. So now let's put her over the left shoulder and out the door. If you pull the door open, you hit her with the door. And hopefully that's your strong side, that you can pull the door open that way. And then when you push the front door open, that blood would make sense because she's on your left shoulder. But we know he's right-handed, strong side. So for him to throw her over the shoulder in some type of bag or wrapped up in a blanket or something to that effect, we don't even know where that came from. There could be a drone in that backpack. Mm-hmm. There could be anything in that backpack. We don't know where that comes from. Okay. There is no evidence in that house that it was disturbed. According to my sources, there's none. All the blood pattern analysis is in the front. Okay. And when they probably swabbed the blood in the front, they may have found saliva, which would be consistent with aspiration. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the blood pattern analysis does not line up with the pattern that we're seeing as somebody being carried over the shoulder. It doesn't line up.
Yeah, and I think it would be just physically difficult. We all know that for one person to throw, even dead or alive, over your shoulder and haul them around like that. It's you can do it, and I know it can be done. It can be done. The military, Marines are taught that. Firemen's carry, and we all know it can be done. But to me, that's not likely in this case, just because most of the reason I think that is from what you just said, Chris, the navigating the doors and then think about that, walking out the front door at 2 a.m. or whenever with a body over your shoulder like that and loading Nancy into a car. Think about that. You talk about a risk of being observed by somebody driving by or a neighbor, up at that time looking out the window. I mean, that is a hell of a risk in my view.
And
Right.
why are we relying on one person to transport her when our supposition is that there were a minimum of 2 people present during the operation? It seems more likely to me that 2 people transported her.
Well,
Yeah.
or at least got out of the house, which now we go into, and nobody wants to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it. Okay, the telemetrics data on whose car? Well, it's going to be Annie's car. Okay. You don't need the telemetrics data on Annie's car if you believe the story from Tommaso that he drove her from his house to her house. If you're only looking for proof of life in the vehicle, that takes about 2 days. Because she's not in the computer system of the vehicle. She's in the front seat, the right front seat. But in this case, they tore the car apart and took the telemetrics data out. Well, guess what? That means they know the route of that car. They know where that car went. They know how many times it had come and gone. They know if the doors went open. They know if the doors locked. They know what kind of devices connected to that system. Okay. Why do you need all that data from an investigative analysis aspect, from an investigator? Why do you need that data if you believe what they're telling you? Insert here.
Well, the only reason that you would offer, and I understand where you're going, is that you would offer to Tommaso is that we need to collect this information in order that when we catch the genuine offender, they can't point the finger at you and we can say, look, here's all the data and it's exculpatory, you're not involved. That would be the only reason I would think of, because you're correct. If you believe the story, why are you hanging on to the car for 40 days?
Just to take the telemetrics data.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes no sense. Now we add the second piece of this. Okay.
Nancy's car.
Well, Nancy's car is a no-brainer because that car in of itself, okay, is at the crime scene. The suspect could have touched the car. So you have 2 choices. You can be dumb and process it there, or you can be a good detective and say, tow it.
Right. How long did they hold that?
That it's still in evidence.
Nancy's is, yeah.
Nancy's car is in evidence. Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating because
Yeah, that's why I asked that's why I posed the question.
that is, if they're still hanging on to the vehicle 90 days, that tells me that you have evidence there.
Maybe it was driven back over there and dropped off. Maybe it was driven over there by the family and parked in the garage. We don't know.
Why would you hang on to it? And I'm just talking about just purely from a logistical point of view, because I ran an evidence room for 8 years. If you've got a vehicle, we maintained a secure lot, we looked at every opportunity with the detectives to release the vehicles as soon as possible because there's a finite amount of space. So to be maintaining Nancy's vehicle for 90 days, I think is fairly significant.
Right. Which again makes no sense if the car was out of that garage at Annie's house, hypothetically, and somebody drove that car back and parked it into the garage. Well, now you're going to have to need another car to get back home. And maybe that's the car that belongs to Annie, her car, and they took the telemetrics data out of it. Now that would be, again, part of a scenario or part of a conversation with Annie and Tommaso that says, well, wait a minute, you said you were doing A, B, C, and D, but we pulled your electronics out of your car that shows you were doing E, F, and G. Help us understand that. We're trying to make sense of it for you. And then secondarily, why are you going back to their garage? And why are you taking photographs at 10 o'clock at night or using an alternate light source in the house? Why do you bring an alternate light source into the house? You're not looking for anything other than forensics evidence. You're looking for blood. You're looking for fluids. That's what an ALS is. And you don't do it, unless you have a reason to do it. And then they came out of the house with a bunch of bags of stuff. Well, what's in those bags? What's going on with all of that? And then they go over to the gas station and they pull the video of some guy coming up to the gas station. Well, what's on that video? So I think the sheriff can help us there.
My local media knows that. We'll get started.
Oh, by the way, before I play this piece, we see a paradigm shift. And Gary, did you want to say something? I'm sorry, I jumped ahead.
No, I'm just listening. I'm fascinated by the conversation.
Okay. So, that's the other thing where everybody, has been talking about all the cell devices and everything being downloaded, from everybody in there, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. I think this part is really interesting because now we're going to talk about the notes for a second. Okay. And the guy, by the way, in LA, even though he's still, a one-off, okay, I still think he's an anomaly in this problem somewhere, somehow. Okay. I'm not, because it's interesting what Savannah says here and nobody's caught it. But I'm going to show it to you here in a second. You're going to see it come across the screen.
On behalf of our family, we want to thank all of you for the prayers for our beloved mom, Nancy. We feel them, and we continue to believe that she feels them too. Our mom is a kind, faithful, loyal, fiercely loving woman of goodness and light. She's funny, spunky, and clever. She has grandchildren that adore her and crowd around her and cover her with kisses. She loves fun and adventure. She is a devoted friend. She is full of kindness and knowledge. Talk to her and you'll see.
The light is missing from our lives. Nancy is our mother. We are her children. She is our beacon. She holds fast to joy in all of life's circumstances. She chooses joy day after day, despite having already passed through great trials of pain and grief. We are always going to be merely human, just normal human people who need our mom. Mama, if you're listening, we need you to come home. We miss you.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She is 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. She needs it not to suffer. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media.
Okay, there's a lot going on here for me. This is the biggest one. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. Now, that tells us a couple of things. It tells us that the suspect in this thing sends all of those letters, and we knew some of this, okay, sends all of those initial letters that she believes, even today, were original. She said it on NBC.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't even know about them. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. Okay. The feds didn't come to her and say, hey, there are ransom letters that went to the media. They heard about it. And she's going to even follow it up even one more take here. Okay. So what is this telling us? It's telling us some of these letters here that she's reading, I think part is partially written by the BAU. The proof of life stuff, the empathy, she's trying to gain empathy with the suspect, okay? But I also think it's a two-edged sword. And what I mean by that is she's reading that letter out loud, and then we get a secondary response from Annie. Okay? And Annie talks about humans. It's almost like a disconnect. Because listen to the second piece here.
As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices.
This is BAU Classic 101, right, John? We were both the hostage negotiators. This is Classic 101, what they call mirroring. What you're trying to do is you're trying to put empathy into the victim, that the victim actually exists. So before we give you anything or any money or anything like that, we need proof of life. Send it back to us. We'll talk later, okay? But they haven't even talked to her, talked to the suspect. They're reading this letter that they were told about through the media. So TMZ or the local people did get those two emails and told the feds, hey, we got two emails over here. But they didn't break it down with the family because she said, yeah, we're hearing about it. Okay. But they haven't seen it. They haven't read it yet because listen to the next sentence.
And images are easily manipulated. We need to know without a doubt that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you and we are ready to listen.
Alive and that you have her. We want you, or we want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen. Please reach out to us. She's talking to a singular individual. Now, here's my question, and I'm curious what Maureen thinks. I think the BAU wasn't prepared for that, i.e. the ransom letters to go to the media folks, and which makes it really, really problematic for Cameron to weigh in that his sister was responsible in his mind, to Gary's point earlier, that it's an abduction a ransom abduction. They didn't even know about it. Gary?
I mean, I can't help but think that if that's the interpretation one made, whoever it is that may have staged it to look like one succeeded. But because the idea is that it would imply that it was designed to be so obvious that that's what it was, that anybody, even a person hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles away, would interpret it that way. But I find that whole thing problematic on a lot of levels, because again, it's only one theory. But as far as somebody asserting that blindly like that, I don't know. I can't help but think it's more that that's what Savannah feels may have happened. And I wasn't there to hear it, so I don't know exactly how it was said. If what was said by the brother, you guys know what I mean about how you can remember something differently than it was said, and so I would just sort of take it with a grain of salt because we weren't there. But it did strike me as very odd, and I reiterate the point. It is very, very odd that investigators on the ground didn't think that immediately, and yet somebody from far away, immediately jumps to that. It's interesting. Now, let me ask you guys, what suggests to you, until there was a ransom note, which may or may not have even been real, what suggested that it was for ransom? What would have made the brother say that? Ransom didn't even come into the picture.
Particularly since kidnapping for ransom is a relatively rare crime.
Well, true.
Yeah.
So
That's
where
why
does that come from?
That's why I just played that clip.
Okay, let me jump in here, Gary, to answer your question. I don't know where it comes from, but I will reiterate what I said earlier about the Today Show offering through a private security company the possibility of stalkers interfering with the family in some way. Now, I know it's a stretch to throw out the ransom, but is that where Cameron got it? Possibly. I don't know. I don't even know if he received the training, but apparently it's very common for the Today Show, once again, to offer the family of their superstars this training so that they can be aware of it.
Well, maybe. I mean, he certainly seems like an upstanding and.
But break that down a little deeper, Bob. I mean, what I understand that, LAPD, they have an entire stalker unit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've worked with them. Okay. Back in the day. But, all they do is they go and they say, look, here's the personality types. Okay. And they tell all their handlers, their managers, their producers, okay, these are the kind of things you want to look for, yada, yada. Okay. In this celebrity, stalking situation. Okay. But why would Cameron be part of that training if NBC was doing it? Meaning the guy lives in Vermont and he's an Air Force pilot. I mean, I
the same reason.
Like we're trying to tie him into the logic of, well, the reason he would have known that is because he could have had some stalker training in the past. Okay. I mean, they didn't even know about the notes. You just heard it from Savannah.
Let me answer that. Let me answer your question. So, and I'm just relying on what Megan Kelly has said on her program with respect to the Guthrie. I got to set this up though.
Critically about what's going on. Go ahead.
Okay. I have to reference Megan because I don't have the direct information. So I'm going to cite Megan Kelly for what she said on her program with regards to the Guthrie case. And that is the Today Show NBC has a contract with some private security company that are experienced in celebrity stalkings.
Yeah.
And they offer it to the family. Now, to answer your question, apparently they've given it to Nancy. Cameron is a direct sibling of their star, Savannah. So why wouldn't they give it to, if they're giving it to the direct family? I don't think they give it to the third and fourth cousin but they would give it to the direct family so that they can be aware and recognize possible attempts of whether it's kidnapping or the concepts of a stalking incident. Okay. I don't know if Cameron got the training or not, but I believe that Nancy got it based on what I
would agree
remember
with that.
from Kelly's program. So
I see the celebrity getting it, no question.
yeah, but the family, because apparently for this reason.
How many celebrities did we guard during all the golf tournaments in La Costa, during all the tennis tournaments? I guarded Tom Cruise during the filming of Top Gun back in 1985.
Worked the Bob Hope Desert Classic. Yeah, you did that. Can I, before
I spent 4 days with that turd, by the way.
Can I?
Me and Rich Davis.
One point
Go ahead.
From her interview, the curious use of the word humans.
Yeah.
You were humans. Well, all right, maybe that's a verbal tick on her part, but most people I know refer to ourselves as people. It's to me, it just strikes me as a peculiar word, and my observation may be meaningless, but combined with the delivery, it just struck me as strange.
Well, I think that's let's say he got the training. Let's give him the training. Okay. And he knows about ransom. I mean, this is so rare they don't even keep statistics on it. So why he would apply it to his mother immediately, again, is another problem. Gary didn't even know about this stuff. And I mean, he's got 119 years worth of data, but the brother had it almost instantaneously from his military training somehow. Okay. I don't know. I'm not, by the way, I've taken him off the plate 1,000%. He's in Vermont when this thing's going down. Totally. In my play, I would not waste another minute even talking about him because he's no way involved.
Neither an upstanding person.
They're all great.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And if I gave that impression,
no, you're fine.
That is not what I meant to say. I'm just using him as an example. You brought him up, so I used him as an example.
I get it. But at the same time, everybody's an expert now. Even Meg and Kelly. Okay, they're all experts.
And everybody's a profiler.
And everybody's a profiler.
Including Gary.
Right.
I engage in profiling, but I'm not a profiler because you need certain training for that title, which I'm not entitled to have.
Right.
I will add that from a statistical perspective and from study, I can tell you, stalkers do not abduct people for ransom. They abduct them for keeps. There is no world in which a stalker is going to sell back a person. The point is that they're theirs forever. They're there. They belong to you. That's the point of abducting a person when you're obsessed with them. You don't say, I'm obsessed with you for a couple of days and you could be taken back for a few bucks. That's ridiculous. But the other thing, of course, is that when stalking is involved, you would see lots and lots of obsessional attempts to reach the object of your obsession electronically or with phone calls or whatever. I mean, anyone who has had a stalker knows that the person makes no attempt to conceal how much they're fascinated by you. They can't help themselves. And there is a narcissistic presence in your life, a hovering kind of need to assert presence and be near you. And stalking, I've always thought from the beginning that any version of this story where this was about somebody being stalked with a desire to get close to somebody that they had a preoccupation with just doesn't work.
That's where Fitz is at.
Based on psychology.
Fitz is stuck now on a stalker. And somehow Savannah, it's into Savannah, that's connected to Savannah. And I talked to Greg Cooper about that. And he totally disagrees.
He sees it the way I do, that this doesn't
Greg
look like
says they're
Well, 2 or 3 shows ago, I asked Gary, if you recall, Gary, I asked Gary that question. Could this be? And I was just posing a hypothetical alternative theory and wanted Gary's opinion on it. And then, of course, it came out in the comments that I thought I'd changed my theory on the case. So I have not changed my theory on the case.
Well, this is why we did a show about how to think, because these are problems and how people make conclusions that are very erroneous and problematic. I think
Greg made an interesting point. Greg made an interesting point, Greg. He goes, this guy is so obsessed with himself. He said, look how he comes up to the porch. And look how he carries himself on the porch.
Right.
The gloves, the gun, the outfit. He says he's almost like this vanity type of, projection, right? And he's more concerned about, presentation.
And being seen as a muy mal hombre.
Well, and that was an interesting concept, right? Which was a really interesting thing.
Right out of central casting.
Right out of central or something, in this ballpark. Okay. And
or some video game.
Somewhere, somehow, et cetera. But he said, don't underestimate him. Even though we're looking at this guy and going, yeah, he's kind of a goofy, whatever. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed. He said there could definitely be, much sharper tools in the shed here. But it's not an obsessive, because I'm going to get Savannah's mom. I mean, he said, what are the odds of that when there aren't even statistics that are kept about celebrities' mothers being kidnapped? Why her? What is it about Savannah Guthrie that somebody would say, I'm going to go steal her, I'm going to go take her mother and hold her for an alleged ransom? Yet,
Gary,
not only that, even from a pragmatic, because whenever I think about a case, I'm sure all of you do this too, I separate in my mind the pragmatic from the emotional. And from a pragmatic perspective, it's not a particularly good victim because there's too high of a probability that she'll expire. There's also too high of a probability you're going to get caught because there'll be international attention on you because she's the daughter, the mother of a famous person. And also, she, maybe there's some money there, but she doesn't have the wealth of the daughter. She's not independently a bajillionaire or something. In other words, I don't understand why her. It doesn't. She's a very odd choice for a victim. You guys see what I mean? I mean, for a kidnapping victim, you want somebody who's going to come back in pristine condition, make it through the abduction, and make it from a pragmatic perspective. Why would you take an 84-year-old and not even bring her medicine? I mean, from a pragmatic perspective, she's an odd choice. And that's one of the things that is pointed to me to local. Because you wouldn't, out of all the people in all the world, hone in on Tucson to pick this woman. You'd have to be a local. I mean, that's the other thing that is people are finding controversial in what we keep saying, is that we think these people were locals. So I think we should touch on that too, about why we're so confident that these were locals. But I have not even the slightest doubt in my mind that everyone, chef and waiter, were local.
I agree.
Yeah, I do too.
And if the pragmatic element extends to, and this is where I eliminate the notion that this was a kidnapping for ransom, is why isn't the ransom demand sent to the person that conceivably has the money to pay for it? It's sent to a media outlet. Now, that makes no sense.
Well, and that's where John, great point. And that's where I've had a problem with insert here. The dude sending the text message.
Well, to John's point, it doesn't make any sense. And if you recall, the first missive that was sent by the supposed kidnappers were sent to a local television station, and they didn't air it initially. They gave it to the FBI. And then later that day, my understanding is that's when they sent it to TMZ, knowing that TMZ would air it. And they did. So
Yeah. And so what suspect does that?
Yeah, exactly. What rationals? Now we've got to assume that even if this operation was botched at some point or didn't go on, perfectly, there is a rationality behind the removal of this woman. So I would suggest that the ransom demands are either deliberate chaff, and for those who are unaware, chaff is stuff spread in the air to prevent radar from picking up aircraft. It's either chaff from the offenders or it's opportunists who have jumped in and either for purposes of publicity or because they think someone might cough up some money, they've inserted themselves into the operation.
yeah, I think they were opportunists.
Yeah. And why not just fire it off to, to your point, right? Why not just fire it off to Savannah?
Yeah, exactly. If you want money, if this has some pundits have suggested this is a kidnapping for ransom, well, they weren't the brightest kidnappers in the world because they missed the most important part, which is contacting the people that have the money. And see, that's where the entire edifice falls apart.
Right.
Well, another case, because that's something people have been bringing up a few times. Is there any precedent for the idea of sending a ransom note when you haven't really taken the person, they're actually deceased? I don't think we have to look much farther than the John Benet Ramsey case, where a ransom note is left and the child is already deceased. And the intention, is an interesting one in terms of the purpose of that. I mean, Chris, we've talked about that on your program. The ransom note being written when the child is already dead. And, so that there is precedent for that. Another example is the Lindbergh baby. So that I think, but there are different motives. It's not always about, I want to get the money anyway. It could also be that you want a little time before people figure out what really happened. And that's the thing. Mm-hmm.
You've already accomplished the crime, though, to your point.
Right.
So why are you going back and now saying, hey, by the way, I need to get paid for killing her?
It's an interesting question. It could be a double motive. There could be a double motive. From a financial perspective, I get it. But from another motive, it could simply be to give the honest impression that somebody who has nothing to do with her just came in and did this. And to do that, you need a ransom note because that's what would be expected if this were an abduction. That's why if this is staged, you'd still send a note.
Well, that I guess that's where, I'm not saying I'm not 100% on the totality of a staging personally.
No,
right? We've talked about this. But,
we agree it's possible.
Yeah, I'm not 100% on either, but I think it's well within
is
play.
Is it a possibility? Absolutely. Is it possible?
Right. And if it is, you would send a note.
Well, yes, that's where it would play into the note.
That's what I'm getting at. But let me be clear because
because people misunderstood what you were saying.
Theory. Right.
Yeah, they misunderstood from the TMZ piece that you were saying it's or whatever the state.
For sure, right? If anybody could say that, right? Yeah.
Right, but so I think that maybe this other piece of this puzzle, the notes going in there, okay, that could also just be a curveball, high and inside, to get people off the plate, okay, to move them back.
Yeah.
And because they come, the anomaly here is that knucklehead in Hawthorne,
mm-hmm.
who just arbitrarily finds Tommaso's phone number because he did a quote open source intel search. Okay, fine. You can do that. We can all do that, right? Not a problem. Go to People Finder or whatever the, TLO and all the other places. You can do that. You can get his phone number in probably about 5 minutes. The same with hers. But his problem was he called. That 9-second phone. Yeah.
Both
that,
of them.
Yeah. That 9-second phone call that we don't know who he called. It's not in that affidavit. Okay. They chose not to put his name, who the receiver of that
family
call,
member.
yeah, who the receiver of that call was. If it's Tommaso that got the call, that's a problem versus Annie. If Annie gets the call, I can go, oh yeah, she's family. If Tommaso got that 9-second phone call, why is he calling Tommaso? What the heck is that all about? That piece of the puzzle. Okay. So that can't be dismissed, because when we hear now this next piece of the puzzle here from me and us and the audience, we think about the 911 narratives that start here. Well, we thought it was an emergency. We thought it was a medical emergency. Okay, well, then that means Nancy should have made the first 911 call because she's calling for medical assistance for herself. Okay. Well, we can take that off the board because that didn't happen. Okay. And then the second, and by the way, insert here, I'm going to say the narrative. Okay. All the lock mechanisms on the door, but somehow mom forgets to always lock her doors in the evening in the back. All the front of the house, the side of the house, the sliding door to her bedroom, all locked at all times.
Well, and the fact you have that huge security door in the front, I mean, that is a significant door.
Yeah. And the back. In the kitchen, there's one too. Okay.
So go ahead. So Chris, so we can come back to this, but I have an answer from Maureen on the BAU question you have.
She's watching, so go.
Okay, so the question was, and correct me if I'm wrong, the question was, did the BAU play a role in crafting that message from the Savannah read?
I think, yeah, my opinion is they played a partial piece of that, and Savannah also wrote into that note.
Okay, so Maureen says, I would agree they, meaning BAU, thought it was odd, as we all did, but once there was no proof of life, it loses its power to a large extent. That's her answer. So,
okay. Yeah, so we agree that, that there's probably some modifications that took place in that letter or in that first note because she didn't know about the ransom note. From my take on what we just saw there, they were surprised to hear that there was a ransom note sent to all the media outlets, and they responded to it. It wouldn't surprise me if they picked up the phone or one of their security guys, because the Nanos, remember, was talking to her security team. They were on the scene, okay, from the very beginning. Remember, she makes a couple of phone calls. She calls Kelly, the senator. She calls Nanos. She calls her security team who grab her, throw her on a plane, and they're all headed westbound to Phoenix. She calls her sister, or her sister calls her a couple hours later and says, Mom's gone. She's missing. We called the hospitals, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So, again, a lot of this narrative that we're hearing here is all about insert here from certain personality types. Okay. I mean, people can't get around that. If we're going to follow the bouncing ball and be honest in this investigation, or at least looking at it objectively, have I said anything that is in left field that anybody disagrees with or agrees with? I don't care either way, because it's productive. That's what I mean by that. To disagree is productive. And we haven't even talked about the garage anomaly yet.
But I think, Chris, you should talk a little bit more about your idea about the door, because it was so interesting and people didn't really follow it, about what can be deduced from that door being bolted. And the other thing that I think is important about it is a lot of people are struggling to understand why we think this had to involve more than one person. And I'm curious if you see a link between that question and the way the door was shut. Okay. I mean, somebody having to do it from the inside or let you in or whatever. So I'm just curious because people really felt that we were about to say something really interesting and then we got sidelined. So why don't we talk about that a little bit? Because it was such a great point.
So let's deduce that all the surveillance. We'll step back to all the surveillance the suspect does. Every time the suspect brings that car into the neighborhood, his risk level goes up. Whenever a suspect's risk level goes up, an investigator needs to pay attention because they're projecting very large clues. Okay. Now, what's the second risk level? The second risk level is once you have figured out how you're going to target the house and you're going to get into that house, do you know what's your point of entry? You're going to go through the front. It looks like he thought he was going to go through the front. But ultimately, somehow, he thinks himself out of it. And he has a thought process change. And he moves around to the back. Okay. He may have been checking doors all the way around the house, but why would he be doing that if he's risking taking his car into the neighborhood? And if you take the victim risk continuum and it's a low risk victim, okay, and you measure that against what how the suspect is moving around this house, well, then the lower the risk level to the associated crime, the higher probability that there was a pre-association between the victim and the offender.
So anyone would suggest that there was at least some connection between them, as opposed to, for example, taking a victim in a supermarket parking lot or something.
Right.
This is more suggestive of you knew them.
Right. And we can hammer that all day. Right. But in this case, it's pretty obvious somebody knows Miss Guthrie.
In some way, absolutely. Even if it was like a contractor who came to the house or a pool guy.
HVAC pool guy. You have to, if John and I were sitting in our office, we would make sure that all of those individuals were solidly interviewed. And you say, okay, yada, yada, yada. Okay. And you put them on a list of important people to pay attention to. So now we go back to the house for for a minute here. The suspect takes all of this time to maybe months in advance to surveil this home. And at no time and in no way is he giving indications that he's projecting it back towards Savannah, his obsession. He's not sending messages to Savannah about even hints that he's about ready to take her most prized possession on this earth, her mother, which you always talk about, Gary. Brian Koberger is forever embedded into the Idaho 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can never think about your daughter again without having to think about that monster.
And you will never think about your mother again without thinking about me. So for this guy now to go to the house and arbitrarily find a door open, there has to be an insert narrative to why that door is open. If the medical alert doesn't work, you have to have a second reason to put the suspect in the house. The only other reason that we've heard that the suspect is in the house is the victim was blamed for leaving the doors open regularly as a habit. Okay. And now if we take that and we look at the victimology of this 84-year-old woman, this is where victimology comes in. what are the odds that the suspect knew that mom would leave the back doors open? And that's why I started thinking about the front door.
Mm-hmm.
What are the odds he knew that the front door would be locked and that it would have 4 lock mechanisms on it? And so I started thinking, okay, let's put the suspect in the house in her bedroom. Whatever time frame it is, we have the data points for when she woke up, et cetera, because of the spike, et cetera. Okay. And now this guy's standing over her and saying, okay, get dressed. I got 30, maybe 40 minutes here, and we're going to get all your affairs in order. And I'm here, by the way, just to kidnap you. Okay? Now, of course, for the chat, this is all hypothetical, but let's presuppose that's what the guy's thinking. And thank you for leaving your doors open. I knew internally somehow I wasn't going to have to break a window to make any noise. I wasn't going to have to jimmy the door. I didn't need any tools to make entry into your house because I'm a burglar. I just knew your doors were going to be open because you're 84, and I knew you would leave them open for me. So I figured I would check the front door first, just in case you didn't leave your back doors open. But you know what? I'm not even going to check the lock. I'm not even going to grab the door handle. I'm just going to check the camera. And now that I've checked your camera and I know somehow your doors are going to be open in the back, I'll just go around. But before I go around, I got to park my car. Or at least let my guys know out on the street that the car's parked out there, that we're going to be coming out the front. But I'm going to go around and I'm going to put a pot by the back door and I'm going to prop the back door open through the kitchen. The furthest door away from your bedroom. Not the closest one. The other blue door would have been a lot closer and would have been a lot easier to leave open because all you have to do is pull it in. You just put your hand out and you pull it in and you leave it open. And now you can get her just out of the house. You don't even have to prop that door open. It's on a 3-hinged swing with 2 lock mechanisms, a deadbolt and a regular door handle. But I'll leave it open. Or actually, I'll leave it closed. And it'll probably be locked when the family shows up in the morning. But the kitchen door will be propped open with and maybe the gate. I don't know. There was, both of those concepts presented themselves. So now that I'm standing over your bed and I'm here to kidnap you, I've got a lot of time with my partners with the car parked out on the street that nobody's going to see them for the next 40 minutes. I'm just going to hang out in the house with you. Are you good, Nancy?
Make some tea.
Yeah. Let's get ready to leave. Let's just hang out for a little while. My guys are outside. Nobody's going to see the car at 2:47 in the morning. Don't worry.
And leave your shoes off.
And leave your shoes. Leave your shoes off. Yep. Don't put any shoes on. Let's leave the pajamas or whatever. Okay. And by the way, I'm not gonna 187 you here in this house. Okay. I'm gonna take you out of the house and leave very minimal blood trail all the way out to the driveway, or excuse me, out to the walkway. But before we do that, I've changed my mind. I've left the door open and I can see that you have a hard time walking. It's you have all these other problems. So I'm just going to take you out the front. Now we get to the front door. What's the first thing the suspect sees? Let's hope that it is a twist deadbolt and not a dual key deadbolt. It sounds like it's a twist deadbolt, because if it was a dual key deadbolt, okay, then he didn't go out that door. Unless he said to her, oh, by the way, we need your keys. I'm kidnapping you. And you're going to have to, we're going to have to open the store with those keys.
Brilliant question, Chris, if the keys were in the house.
And what the conditions were of the bolts on all of the doors.
That is the $1 million question when the deputies got there on body camera. And I'll bet you we have that, they have that body camera. And when they walk through with that, with the RP, and she said, or he said, the door was open or the door was locked. Okay. Now we're cooking. Insert here. And I would have held that back and not said a word. I would have just taken it in. Okay. Okay. No problem. Because now the suspect has to go out that front door with Miss Guthrie. I think, first of all, you have a left to right pull, because that front door, okay, the hinge side is on the right side. And now or excuse me, it would have been a left to right. It's on the left side going out. Okay? The interior door, the wood door. So you got two locks there that you have to manipulate, the suspect, and you have to control Miss Guthrie. Now that may or may not be a problem, but you've had 30 minutes. Let's say, let's just give this guy 30 minutes in that house, which to me has never made any sense. Okay?
Yeah. It's a protracted time in the house to no purpose.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, come on, right? I mean, this guy wants to get in there. He spends months getting into the house, figuring it out. Now that he's in the house with an alleged, accomplice outside up the street, parked in a car or in the driveway or wherever this guy is, let's put the guy in the driveway, the alleged accomplice. Okay, we're coming out. Where are you? I'm by the garage. Okay, we're not coming out by the garage. We're coming out through the front door. Okay, copy. I'll pull the car around. Okay, so that person pulls the car around. That's two accomplices. Let's say it's one guy. Okay, 30 minutes in the house. You wait here. Okay, I'm going to bind you. I'm going to tie you up so you can't move. You're not going anywhere. I'm kidnapping you.
And don't forget, you've got to inflict an injury that causes bleeding.
Right. And no blood in the house, according to the sheriff. It's all concentrated near the front door. Okay. So that's scenario number 2. He has to bind her. He has to control her in order to get out of that house. Okay. Now, zip ties, duct tape, all that stuff, not a problem. You can do that. Leave her there. Now he's got to go out, raise his risk, start the car, and drive it up and park it in the front, crossing his fingers that there's no way in the world that she was fighting or, thinking that he's gone and that he's going to pull up a car. For all, we don't know, right? We don't know, but we've seen different things. I had a woman who duct taped herself to a table one time. Remember down on Los Arbolitos, John? And she said she was, a victim of an SA. She literally duct taped herself to the table, and duct taped her hands behind her back.
I believe
she was what's that terminology where you can, move?
Double jointed.
Yeah, and she put her hands behind her back. And in 911, what's your emergency? Hi, this is the next door neighbor. I heard my neighbor screaming. Okay, the police are there. It was all staged. It was all fake.
Yep.
I had her in the
pretty creative.
I had her in the interview and she was like, okay, yeah, I lied. Why? And it was a different day. Okay, but so now this guy's got her in the house. She's on the floor. She's duct taped. Let's go with that scenario. I'll be right back. Where are you going? I'm going to get the car because we're leaving. Okay. That's with one perpetrator. So either he runs up the block and gets the car, or he runs outside near the garage and gets the car, or in front, wherever the car is parked at that point, and he pulls it around. And then he runs back inside through the front door again, okay, and then gets her and takes her out through the front door. But guess what else he does? He closes the interior door. So when the family gets there, they find the door closed. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm leaving the back door open, why am I closing the interior front door? That doesn't make any sense. She's already injured. And he's already got her headed out to the car. Why are you turning around to go back to close the interior door?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you're worried about burglars?
That doesn't make any sense. Hey, just a minute, Mrs. Guthrie, while you're here in the car, I got to go close your front door. I'll be right back.
Well, maybe because
you're leaving again?
Well, maybe because an ajar front door would be more alarming to a passerby than an ajar back door. To make the scene look normal, you don't want the front door ajar in the middle of the night.
Okay, but then you get the family who shows up in the morning and they go to the front door and it's open. And then they go through the back door that was open. And they go, oh, mom must have walked out either through the front or the back. We're not sure. But if the front door is closed, that's a problem. That's a real problem. Because now the family can say, well, yeah, when we got here, the front door was closed and we didn't see the blood until we opened it and looked out, and there it was. But if the back door is propped open and the front door is open because the suspect left it open because taking mom out the front door, then they have to say, yeah, and we opened the screen door and we saw the blood. But we weren't concerned about that.
Right.
Or, but wait a minute, maybe we were and we thought it was a medical problem. But wait a minute, that narrative goes towards the paramedics in the back door. The paramedics wouldn't have left the front door open. Okay. Now, all these things.
I mean, Chris, I got to be honest with you. You're doing a pretty good job of painting the picture that staging could have happened. By explaining it this way, what are you left with?
I am following the bouncing ball, Gary. That's all I'm doing.
I mean, you said that you're not inclined towards that theory, but you just walked the entire audience into thinking that it could have been a staging scenario, because otherwise it's completely illogical.
The only thing that will change this narrative is if what they said when the first patrol guys were there and what the patrol guys saw, which then leads into this idea. Okay. It leads into this idea. John, Bob, we're all in the same room. Gary. Okay.
Well, the other thing add to this, Chris, is what was said on the 911 call.
Yes.
That plays a role in it too, as to starting this out.
And if they found the lights on or off upon entry, it's something I really want to know.
Right.
I mean, we all agree that it'd be important.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, which I think probably may have happened, and I don't know. It's a hypothetical, of course.
This is a profile, Chris?
Are you a profiler?
Better defer to Gary.
No, don't you guys stir the pot.
I was born stirring the pot.
All right, but here's probably right. If all four of us, we'd circle up, and I'd say, and we would all go through this just like we just did, and say, "Do you think we should get the car?" And you know what, John, you're my
Yeah,
supervisor.
of course, yeah.
You're my supervisor.
I mean, you know, my attitude with the crime scene is back up the U-Haul. I'm going to take everything, particularly something like this. But
Right, it's not fitting, right, guys? We should impound the car, maybe check it.
Yep.
Okay.
Of course, the first night, not 3 days later.
Yeah.
Station-O. Yeah, I need 1185 here, please. With an evidence
Who's
hole in
going
the.
to do the CHP 180?
Yeah, I need it, and I'm going to cut the paper here. It's called the CHP 180, Gary. It's a form. Okay. I need an 1185 as a tow truck. Okay. I need a tow truck here. We're going to impound this for evidence. And the tow truck driver comes up, they pull up, they back up, and you say, hey, don't touch anything in this vehicle. Just hook the chain up underneath it. Do not touch it. We're going to seal the doors, and you're going to write your name, your initials, and your ID number on the doors, both doors, just like you saw them do on the Range Rover. Okay, where they put the evidence tape on the back and they initialed it that none of those doors were open. And then that car is going to go into impound at our evidence facility. And it's going to go indoors for processing.
Right.
Okay. And we're going to go to a judge and say, Your Honor, here's all the things that we feel are a problem. We're not saying anybody's involved. We're just saying we want to eliminate all these problems because Miss Guthrie is missing. Okay. And a judge is, go ahead.
No, but if anybody thought of what you're talking about with the door, wouldn't you have taken the door?
Yes.
To examine the door? Take the freaking door.
Gary, I would take all the doors.
They didn't take the mat.
They didn't. I mean, the mat was a no-brainer, but I'd have seized all the doors.
Or the Nest camera frame.
Or the Nest camera.
There you go.
Right. Bob, you would have taken the door also, right?
You bet I am. If he fumbled with it, it's coming off. I'm with John on that. Get the U-Haul because.
And if somebody's going to be squawking later when they see all the stuff gone from the house, I'd be telling the family, get plywood because you're going to be closing the doors off with plywood. I mean, I've done it.
So Chris, it makes me think that nobody thought of the importance of the door that you thought of, or maybe they did, but didn't occur to them to take the door.
It's still there.
It just seems so critical in terms of deducing the order of events. The other thing it's important that we have to say is that people sometimes who have associations with you can get copies of keys. I mean, for example, I'll give you an example. I had an incident some years ago, just to give an illustration. I had an incident some years ago where my car needed repair after it was totaled in an accident. Somebody struck me going 80 miles per hour in a rainstorm, hit my vehicle, was destroyed. I'm glad I wasn't. And I brought the car in for repair, and a few weeks later, the car was stolen. And it was said to me by an investigator, what we think happened is that when you brought the car in for repair, they copied the key, took down your address, went to your house, and literally just started the car and drove off. And, and it's like, when you think about it, there are clever ways you can get people's keys. And, I mean, just to sort of play devil's advocate with the idea of someone who in a sort of vague way knows you, is it possible somebody had a key?
I don't know.
Key?
Anything's possible.
Yeah, or a key was hidden outside under a pot.
That's another question. Under a rock.
Wind could have blown the door shut, especially with back door open. Yeah, absolutely. But the wind couldn't have locked the door.
Well, that's what I want to know. In other words, you have to to lock the door. What is required? What is required to lock that door?
Well, you have to turn the bolt mechanism, unless it's a key. If it's a key, it's a deadbolt. You have to use the deadbolt and turn it that way. And by the way, you have to do that in the back doors as well. If you look at the blue door in the back under the patio, there's a deadbolt and a regular handle bolt.
So in theory, if you're in the house, you could lock the front door, but then not be able to lock the back door because you're exiting it.
Well, if you came out through the back, yeah, you could leave the door wide open.
You could lock the front from the inside and be unable to get it out, lock it on the way out because you're not inside the house anymore. which would leave the back doors open and have the front locked, right?
Right, but we're presupposing that the suspect is conscientious about, making
Right.
sure the house looks just right.
Security, probably a member of neighborhood watch.
Right.
me,
And really, I just think that door, it's like when you play that kid's game and you say you're warm, like there's something warm about this door point.
So you see this door, see the door mechanisms? This is a key to get in. If it's the same on the other side, which it's probably not, it's probably a twist key, a twist bolt mechanism. But then you see this lock here. Okay, so there's two locks here. And then you'll notice it's a left-hand swing. So it's right to left swing. So you reach up and you pull it and you open it up there. But you know what we don't see the suspect doing on the front porch is checking this lock to see if it's even open. He reaches up immediately, starts playing with the candle, the camera. So why isn't he thinking about going through the front?
And why doesn't he just smash the glass and open the door?
Well, that's another point. He could have broken the glass, reached around. Happens all the time. And
I mean, that doesn't look like very good security. And also, it's illogical to have the front of your house look like a castle portcullis and the back of the house have open doors. That doesn't make any sense in terms of an integrated mind, an integrated person. It doesn't jive.
Yeah,
that the front of your house would look like
being
a castle,
sharp.
the back would be open.
yeah, I mean this is a huge problem.
It doesn't make any sense. I can't wrap my mind around it. I mean, is it just that you figure people only see the front, so the front has to look like a castle with a castle gate, and the back doesn't, or what? Because how do you reconcile that? Keeping back doors open commonly, but being concerned enough to bolt the front door shut. I mean, does that make sense to any of you?
Behind this door too, right, Gary? No, you're right. Behind this door is a secondary door. That's what I've been talking about. There are two
Unless
doors.
the story of keeping the back door open is made up.
And the secondary door, okay, there's also a dual lock mechanism on it. So this guy has to manipulate 4 locks to take her out of this house. But for some reason, he decides, you know what, I'll just prop the back door open, but I'll take her through the front. That what's the old saying, right? Walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, probably a duck.
But also, Chris, to your point
Not rocket science.
But to your point earlier about risk, all these scenarios that you're painting, like, for example, running up the block for a car and things like that, they're all incurring greater and greater risk. That really makes no sense in terms of somebody who did pre-planning. I mean, that's the other thing. That would suggest that something happened that wasn't supposed to. Because if you pre-planned this, why would you? That's such a stupid thing to have happen, that you have to run up the block for a vehicle or something like that. I mean, it doesn't jive with people who planned for days or weeks.
No, that's right. And that's why this picture is so important. Because he picks a full moon.
Right.
That increases risk.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where now the astronomers can figure out, okay, his shadow cast down on the porch as he's coming in, on that video. Let me, I think I have the video here. Well, I may not. Okay.
I love that there are people in the audience that are saying they're starting to realize why you can't take staging off the table.
Okay. So where you see the door handle right there,
mm-hmm.
he doesn't even touch it. So this guy, John, right? He's not even interested in going in the house.
Which is my contention, that he's there to be seen.
Great point.
Yeah. Maybe he doesn't need to go in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. So while everybody's been focusing on what he looks like and all this, all this other stuff, really what's going on? What's the game here with this guy? See, I'll just cover the camera. I won't grab the door handle. I'll just cover the camera. And you're right, Bob. Maybe he doesn't need to go in. Maybe, He looks like he's looking to the left there initially, but then that Monk's, intrigue did that video where he actually stopped it and reversed, and you can physically see this guy's pupils looking at that camera.
Mm-hmm.
That was extremely eerie and
Oh my
interesting.
gosh, that was such a great move by that kid. I give him credit where credit is due.
Yeah, that was very interesting. But you've made the point, Bob, that he could look totally nonchalant because Nancy is already potentially deceased. The point has been raised that maybe he was high. I've mentioned, and Mary Ellen O'Toole has mentioned, that maybe he's psychopathic a little bit. But another possibility is that he's not anxious because he isn't really the prime mover here. There's somebody else inside who's doing the heavy lifting, and this is just a secondary figure who doesn't really have to do anything so nefarious beyond, help carry her out, drive the car. Right. Like, what's taking you so long? That kind of thing. I'm not hearing from you. I'm coming to, are you in there? Signaling through the glass with the flowers. It could be that this is just the secondary schmuck, who, and the main guy is in there. And that would explain some of the things, the cool-headedness and what looks like signaling through the glass and all that. So it's possible, isn't it? That but I think, to get back to the original purpose of going down this path, our group and our ideas, one of the things that people have sort of had a problem with is that we're very confident, not only that the people involved were local, but also that there was more than one. And I think the descriptions that we're giving tonight, it's really hard to envision a world in which this doesn't at least involve a kind of smarter person and then this person that was seeing on the camera. But I even think on the ground at the house, it looks like there's more than one person, doesn't it?
It could be.
Get caught on the camera.
I don't know. I didn't mean to step on somebody.
But Chris, you at least think there's a getaway car. A vehicle.
You may find that car.
All right.
This case is solved.
Well, I think that in 2026, that is probably the main way. Between DNA and the technology of phones and vehicles, well, that's how people get busted.
Well,
and I think you're 100% right that whatever vehicle was involved is going to be and there've got to be cameras all over the place that were catching the vehicle.
They better be searching for cars that have been arsoned throughout the southwestern United States, because at some point it's going to occur to them that the car is the key. So you got to ditch it. You drive it into a lake, you burn it,
or you take it to Mexico.
A major area to be following up on.
But the I'm sorry, Chris, the absence of the car being seen on cameras, wouldn't that suggest someone who knows the area, that knows to take back roads or things that are less sort of camered up? Or do you think that cameras are everywhere? That there's really no way.
Well, so Gary, that to get in and out of that neighborhood, you're basically reliant on Arizona State Route, I believe it's 87. So it's not like you can come in to that area. You have to be on State Route 87. I think it is, from what I've seen of the map.
And that would be filmed. That's on camera.
Yeah, that's the main thoroughfare.
So this vehicle is on camera somewhere. We're all confident of that.
If whoever this person is, if they came back to that house multiple times, they passed a camera system somewhere.
And do you think, Chris, that the police know that and have held it close to the vest?
Oh, yeah. At this point, that's why they're looking for the. Again, we find the car, you solve this case.
I see.
Yeah, and I'll give you. I had a caper. Her name was Rebecca Ann Jensen. She was a mother. She left a pot of potatoes on a stove. Disappeared. I put a bolo out for her car. A couple of days later, a guy was driving it, and when I got to him, I said, "Where'd you get the car?" Patrol stopped him. We had the bolo. Patrol stopped him. When I got there, they said, "Hey, this guy says that the lady gave it to him and left the car with him." I said, "Yeah, okay, yeah. How much is that bridge in Brooklyn again, Gary?" Yeah,
my favorite Brooklyn expression.
Yeah. Anyway, so Anyway, we found the car, and next thing you know, it was a month and a half later, I found the body. She was buried.
Aw.
And so this is, again, remember in our day, we didn't have all the technology. We didn't have any of these toys. Okay. Are you kidding me? Our solvability rates would have gone through the roof. Okay. And it is literally, you put the car into NCIC once you find it, National Crime Information Center. Every patrol guy has it in their MDT, in their patrol car. They run up behind it. The LPR, license plate reader, boom, punches it up. It comes right up in front of you on a screen, and it goes, oh, wow, look at this. There's a bolo on this car. Okay. And that's, they've got the camera readers on the front, the sides, and the back. So everything they're passing, is feeding data in, and boom, they get a hit. And there was, what was the system? Remember when you hit a 10851 driving by, Phil Tate?
Oh my goodness. The one, I'm trying to think of what it was called, where it was the original.
LoJack.
LoJack, yeah.
LoJack.
And LoJack was a system where when the car was reported stolen, and this was before the satellite took over, they would activate the signal in the LoJack system, and the car would begin transmitting a radio beacon signal. And as a police car, if it got within the area, and if you had a LoJack receiver, it would, a numeric, and we're talking about old school, like dot matrix screens, would come popping up with the numbers, and then you'd call in and go, I got a LoJack hit, number so-and-so, so-and-so. You'd radio, and then they'd radio back and go, yeah, affirmative, that's an Orange County Sheriff's stolen, out of Laguna Niguel. And then you had to, it was like playing Tetris. You had to there was like a signal, and it would show you which way you needed to turn.
Yeah, it would triangulate the signal.
And it was.
In the police cars that had them installed, not every police car had them installed, just selective ones. They had 6 antennas on them.
6 antennas up on top of the cars, yeah.
Yeah, we had it in the helicopters in Denver.
Oh, now that would have been useful, but with a single, like in Oceanside, we had 2 cars, and one of them was broken all the time.
Oh, Traffic had it. Remember, Phil Tate had it.
Yes, Phil Tate.
And then Rick Singh would take the car every single night.
Well, that's what he was good at.
Go figure. Okay, so let me finish this last piece here on the interview here, and watch a paradigm shift again.
Reach out to us. Mommy, if you are hearing this, you are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter, Nancy. We believe and know that even in this valley, He is with you. Everyone is looking for you, Mommy, everywhere. We will not rest. Your children will not rest until we are together again. We speak to you every moment, and we pray without ceasing, and we rejoice in advance for the day that we hold you in our arms again. We love you, Mom.
Love you, Mom.
We love you, Mom. Stay strong.
We love you, Mom. We love you.
We received your message, and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
That right in front of the house, Chris?
Yeah, that's a little memorial in front of the house.
I just asked because if you're investigating a scene and thinking about things like tire tracks and footprints and whatever, I'm wondering why that whole scene wasn't like cordoned off, that nobody could access it like that.
Yeah, this is I think a month later.
Oh, I see.
I don't know the exact time frame, but it's way down the road.
I see.
The only challenge I've had with this one, just this particular picture, it's almost like there's this reinforcement going on because Tommaso and Annie were getting thrown under the bus, by social media, by the world, et cetera. Okay. And it was almost like, okay, Savannah needs to step in and, project this. This is my sister. This is my brother-in-law. And they have nothing to do with this in any way, shape, or form. Okay. Well, that you can blame the sheriff for that, quite frankly, because he's the one that said nobody's off the table. Okay. And he's even changed it even again. I mean, in terms of every time he communicates. But the most bizarre point for me in this whole thing is this next piece. This. It's the letter, or it's the note that she left, knowing that the world was watching. Gary, I need your insight in this.
I don't want to touch that with because I cannot interpret this without knowing the author. I just don't want to interpret it.
Okay,
I don't feel comfortable interpreting. But I think it's an interesting question. I just don't, you know what I mean? Because I think it's important. I want to be fair.
I get it.
Yeah, I'm going to avoid doing that. Yeah.
It's signed Annie, Tommaso, and their son.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Savannah and where is her brother? If this is a projection of family unity, where's her brother in this conversation? Where's Cameron in that conversation? That to me was another one. Insert here.
Right.
I mean, the older brother has gone MIA.
But what's the text of it? What did it say? I'm just curious.
It says,
I hadn't read that before. Did you guys ever see that before?
No. Can I make one observation? The only thing I'm going to say is,
yep.
Look at this. Tell me what the smallest word is written on there. The smallest word, the most crabbed word, the letters closest together. It's underlined.
Love.
You can barely make the word out.
What? Yeah.
It's underlined for emphasis, but look at the way the printing for all of the other words. That word was printed differently.
It says, Mama, we miss you so much. Our hearts are broken. We are standing on ash, on scorched earth.
Oh.
That first,
make out what that said. That I understand that.
That first paragraph is interesting. But Mom, though we are surrounded by so much distress and uncertainty, our love burns bright. We love you.
Poetic.
We love you, Mommy. We miss you so much.
Our best friend.
Our best friend.
So it's Mama. Wait, hold on. It's Mama, Mummy, and There's a third, and mom, right? Mama, mom, and mummy. Okay.
Annie, Tommaso, and her son. So we have a projection of Savannah bringing Annie and Tommaso down the driveway, and Cameron's MIA. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Cameron's MIA. Maybe he went back to his family in Vermont. I don't know. But it's only a partial family unity projection. I have, and this is the guy who understood right away that mom was kidnapped for ransom. And yet he's not there supporting his brother-in-law, like Savannah.
Who knows what the reason is that somebody isn't there, though. Could be.
No, I get that. I get that. But you would think if your mother was missing and your brother and your sister and your brother-in-law are getting thrown under the bus by the world, and that you're going to leave a message for the world to see, that you would want to support them in that messaging. Because, I mean, let's be honest, that was a choreographed, entrance.
Yeah.
But, there's one piece of the puzzle missing, which as an investigator, I thought, oh, there's a fracture here. Something's wrong. Because if it was my sister and they impounded my sister's car, the first question I'd say is, why are the cops holding your car? What help me understand this? What's going on? I'm an airline I'm a F-16 pilot. I'm a logical guy. I can make decisions. Why are they impounding your car? You see, that's another dynamic that nobody's talking about yet. I don't know. I don't know why they did it either yet, but we'll find out over time when the authorities stand up and say, hey, A, B, C, or D. And I hope it's nothing and that the sheriff is correct, and as he tells the world, everybody's off the plate. But then he changed it and he says, no, everybody's still on the plate. He can't make up his mind. I wish I could make up his mind. He has a trial on June 23rd. That's a great question. Yes, he did text ATANT. He did both. He sent 2 text messages to both of them. And then he made a 9-second phone call that we don't know about. What reason would you say the info is being withheld on the 9/11 call? Family entry on 4/1, any other relevant, and appreciate your willingness to talk about all possibilities. I think that 9/11, that very first 9/11 call could have some information in it they don't want out. Crazy Beach. The weird thing for me is when A says, Mama, if you hear this, we need you to come home. We need you to come home. If she was abducted, how is she coming home? That's a great point. There was video that does a close-up on Porch Guy, which picks foliage. There were clearly headlights coming down the opposite road, and Porch Guy looks up at it, knew the vehicle was there. Interesting. Why not check camera on way out from inside using just glove hand after getting door open from inside? Great point. Great point. Thank you. Do we know if the search and rescue dogs alerted to the blood at the front door and walked to the circle drive? We do not know that. But we're presuming that, they probably had some bloodhounds there.
Yeah, Border Patrol, canines.
Yeah.
And those dogs are amazing.
Yes.
So celebrity kidnaps them for ransom are common, just not publicized.
No, that's not true.
No.
Abduction is not as rare as abduction for ransom. There are very few. I mean, that's what I was trying to say when I went on the Brian Enton thing, is that abduction for ransom is quite a rare phenomenon, actually. And it's usually children and almost always people who know you. And once you're deceased, then if, as a female, the likelihood that the person knew you in some way jumps up to as high as 92%. So, I mean, we can't get around those statistics. It just is what it is. And that's why I think, I mean, it's just an intelligent thing to think that this person knew her in some way, and that an abduction for the sake of abduction is probably unlikely. And she's a very poor choice for somebody to abduct, because if you were looking for money, that's a bad gamble. That is a lot of risk for somebody who might not even make it to the car. So it's just, it's a stupid gamble.
We think
it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, we think the card came after the fact that it was a cover your butt situation.
Yep.
That, you know, they ran out there and hung the card on the door.
Right. Chris, I think you injected a lot of hope when you pointed out that it's very likely that law enforcement is aware of the movements of a vehicle and is holding it close to the vest.
I'll
That's a great point, and probably 1,000% true.
If I was a guessing man, they know routes.
So then why hold it back? Because there's no body, there's no DNA, there's nothing else. You can't build a case.
There's a time and a place.
Evidence.
Yeah. They could know, you know, the sheriff made some really interesting thought or comments. Remember, he said, "We know who you are," in one press conference, and we're going to get you. We just don't have enough, you know, and he's made comments about, well, we just don't have enough right now. How many times have we all been in that situation? You know who did it, but you just don't have enough to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right. Well, I was just having a conversation recently with somebody who was pulled over by the police, but the police put the wrong license plate on the ticket. And the person contacted an attorney and said, "This is great. They put the wrong license plate on the ticket. I'll get away with it." The attorney said, "That's not true." You know, it's in other words, it's more that like it's you were the operator, like we have the operator. But when it's the other way around, where it's just a vehicle and you don't know who the driver is, well, then it's a problem. They probably just have a vehicle, but they don't know who drove it. There's no way to prove who drove it. That's the whole thing. Having the vehicle alone is not adequate. How do you place an individual in it? I mean, is the camera going to pick up the person's face?
Right. We go by cars, right? Remember, we talked about the 911. We're talking about cars. They have 3 cars. They have Annie's car, they have Nancy's car, and they have Luke's car, the Range Rover.
Well, that's another character that's very difficult to reconcile.
Well, don't take him off the list.
Right.
Don't take him out of play. Not yet.
Would certainly fit the little profile.
I will not be surprised when the press conference is called and people go, "Okay, here's your players. Here's a couple," and everybody goes, "Well, there you go." The question's going to be, what's the connection to the house, and who's that connection to Nancy? That's going to be the question. I am 100% confident in saying, in my thought process is, somebody is connected to that home, whatever that means. And it's going to be an aha moment, like Elizabeth Smart's sister, where she goes, I know who it was. It was the painter. That's the guy who was in her bedroom.
Well, some of the people that they've been looking at do sound an awful lot like the profile that we've been talking about, in terms of the kind of person who would be the goon at the door. You know, the sort of petty criminal behavior, the maybe drugs, the engaging with the sort of people on the outskirts of the local area, you know, that kind of thing, in trouble for
be a neighbor.
Right.
Somebody who knows somebody who, you know, thought they'd make a quick buck here.
Right, but that's the kind of person that we were envisioning. I mean, I don't really know the details on the people that they talked to, but it sounds like, from what I've heard in the media, that they may be people who in some way sort of fit into that picture. But I still think that none of those people that were looked at could even remotely be the mastermind of such a thing. I still think that those are the people who just, serve the food. And I don't even mean them. I mean that type of person. What's the typical age of famous females having stalkers? Not usually 50s, right? They're all over the map. I'm aware of cases of going from children all the way up to adulthood, all the way through, a little older. Not as old as Nancy Guthrie, but she wouldn't be the celebrity. Savannah would be the celebrity, and I'm not really aware of too many cases where you vicariously, you go for a relative because you're obsessed with a particular person. I mean, that's like starting to get off into the, into the peculiar a little bit. And also, stalkers have a tendency to have mental health backgrounds. The typical stalker is a blend of narcissistic, depressed, and a little quasi-psychotic, at least. And you put that sort of mixture together, and you start to see behaviors that are consistent. Like, for example, Richard Farley.
I said we're at 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Oh, well, then
keep rolling.
People like these examples, but I won't give it then.
Okay, I got 14. All right, well, we're going to get you out of here early.
Okay.
Early.
Ness, I love it. Ness will leave the notifications on your phone. Who has access to her phone or erase them? I'm speaking of both perp videos. Same with house key. Well, we know that her phone was left at the house. So they've probably downloaded all that information with the Celebrite stuff. My thinking is that the back door was abandoned due to barking dogs and lights from the neighbors behind, also some service persons to house car, etc. Key made. What do you all think? I think that could be a possibility, but here's the problem. At 2 o'clock in the morning, a car is making a lot more noise that a dog would draw attention to. Dogs bark at more cars than they do people because they have to smell the people first. Remember, for a dog, it goes nose, eyes, ears. That's the sequence of how they scent and see and hear. Thanks for all you do. Were the backlights smash motion activated? Assume so. And in the front porch light, same. Also, Dia had a landline. The staging is compelling. Justice for Nancy. Thank you, Kitty. That's interesting. Gifted. Thank you. Possible family motive to end the responsibility. Saturday game nights. Caregiving for the next decade. Let's hope not, but that's anything is on the plate. Possible, but anything is on the plate. I believe they took her north by way of 77 towards Orco, Arizona. There's virtually no cameras. It would be far too risky to head south. Okay.
That actually makes sense.
Okay.
And I misspoke. Yeah. I said 87. It's 77.
Okay. And if that's the case, that tells us the suspect knows these roads. And also, if we think about that, that means the suspect had to be aware of where the other cameras were in the neighborhood. And that means that person spent a lot of time doing that math. And that tells us that person is nearby because they know that neighborhood and they would not have stuck out like every YouTuber that comes into that neighborhood now, and everybody that walks their dog and, says, hey, what are you doing here? What about revisiting the other Instagram post where Savannah is alone and seems to be totally directed to someone and they won't be left alone? I didn't want to put that one up, but thank you for saying that because in that video, she's just tore up.
Well, hold on, Chris. You're suggesting that the person is clever enough to do all of that to avoid detection on a camera and then stupidly gets caught on the camera in front of the house?
No, I'm suggesting, yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly, Gary. I'm suggesting that this guy is very familiar with not worrying about getting caught on camera.
Or not worrying about somebody else getting caught on camera.
Not during the day. He's just that guy that Hey, yep. Nobody checks their Ring camera for Bob. Not Bob, but Hank.
Yeah, Hank.
Yeah. Nobody checks the Ring camera for Hank. Wait, why Hank?
We need Jason, who hasn't been around for quite some time. I don't know what happened to him.
Why did the children never look for their mother? It's like they knew she was gone. Well, she said that to her sister. Mom's missing. Quote, she's gone. I feel for the Guthries. My brother and I tragically lost our parents as we're entering young adult, and it forever changed the dynamics between us. We totally understand. Yeah. It's crazy. I'm sorry. I've lost both of my parents as well. Perp looks like he's wearing diving gloves with dry lock rings underneath his exterior gloves. They keep your clothing secure. I've heard that a couple different times. Thank you, Tammy. To Karen's point, why aren't they looking for their mom? The only explanation I can think of is that they already know she isn't alive, and they know who is responsible.
Well, you'd want to be searching for the body. This is something I haven't understood. And again, if the presumption is that she has expired, why have they refused efforts from other groups to search the area?
Yeah, that's a great point. Great point, John.
Yep.
I keep wondering if the car perp Nancy even left the neighborhood. So do we. I want to know what you guys think of Annie's map. I'm not familiar with what you mean by that, Kalik. I didn't know Annie drew a map.
Yeah, unknown.
And if she did, I'd like to see it. And I would be as curious as you are about it. Who goes to Walmart and buys an elaborate costume and then wears it to practice? What a great comment. Gary, they picked up on your Ralph Crandom.
Yeah. The central casting to look like a criminal, like a scary guy.
Do you wonder why the family hasn't been acknowledging the support and love from the public they've received, if not only to dispel rumors and innuendo? Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what happens over the next 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks is going to be interesting because I think some things are going to come back. When was the last time you all dealt with a kidnapper? I think times have changed and this generation deals with things differently. So maybe new presidents being set, maybe, or ransom leads to mislead. When's the last time I dealt with a kidnapper? I have 4 cases right now in the Cold Case Foundation, and 2 of them have kidnappers. So yesterday, but thank you for bringing that up.
I like them as his new presidents.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of precedent.
Yes. I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I just think it's an interesting typo.
Auto spelling. It's
Love
the auto.
experts. Thank you. I'm not sure about these guys sometime, but I love them too. Thank you guys. Enjoy the show. Great family. Yes, they are awesome. Not only a good family, good friends. And so are you. Thank you so much. Okay, that was it, guys. We did it. 3 hours and 28 minutes. Bob, we're an hour and a half short.
Well, I'll try and believe that you tried, Chris, to make it a shorter.
Well, if you didn't push back so hard, and then you got your back up with Maureen.
Hey, somebody's got to keep you in check, brother.
I know.
But Chris, if I'm following the logic that you laid down tonight,
yes,
what you're really saying is that up until, well, let's say stopping at the point where we know from a recording that Uber brought her to the daughter and the son-in-law's house, everything after that can't be independently corroborated. Is that
it's
basically
all purely conjectural, Gary?
That in other words, like if you're going only on what is concretely, demonstrably true, the trail ends at that point. Is that what you're saying? I just want to make sure I'm following you.
Yes, and John brought that up right early. Let me give you an analogy. Okay, you have a pool in your backyard and you have a slider on your house. You come out and you see footprints going from the pool to the house. Did a human do that?
What kind of footprints are you talking about?
Were they wet footprints?
Wet footprints on the concrete. That's called circumstantial evidence. Until you have, and you can chase that all day long. You can say, yes, you can jump in as an investigator and say, yeah, for sure, a human did that. But then you get the suspect and he has a Bigfoot on a stick.
Right.
And he goes, I knew you would chase those footprints for weeks and months. Okay. That's why I made the Bigfoot and so I could just put it in the water and stamp it on the concrete. And when you showed up, I knew you guys, I could fool you.
Right. Well, that's the spirit of our point about staging, is that it's just one of those things where, technically speaking, it's possible. It's possible that every footprint that you see at a scene wasn't really left by a foot. It's always possible.
Well,
and you have to keep a possible. It's just not probable.
And that's the difference between hunters and profilers.
I guess, where does that place me? Do I go into the lion cage and ask it about its mother? Like, I don't understand. What do I do with this lion as a shrink?
Well, you get them at the hospital, but we have to get them there.
You're the bear bait, Gary.
Oh.
We wrap you in bacon.
I understand. Okay. Now it all makes sense. That's so funny. No, but I was trying to follow the analogy. Like, where does that place the the mental health people? Yeah.
Well, yeah, everybody has a role. And what YouTube has done and has allowed to happen is everybody is germinated into everybody else's role. And that's where you get in trouble. That's where all these crazy ideas come from. It's like, just follow the bouncing ball. And the only way you can follow the bouncing ball is if you've ever done it. And not read about it in books. You have got to get that phone call, or at 2:00 in the morning, and be drug out of bed and throw your clothes on, your suit, and you show up and there's blood and body parts everywhere.
Right. But I also think that when we talk, all of us, just because of the thought style we all have, and Mike too, who was with us, and other people who've been with us, is that if you listen to our show and you place the show, the shows we do together, and you place them all side by side, there's a kind of architecture of how it builds to get to these different points, and then we reshape them like scientists. And I think the other thing that happens is people pluck out of that a brick or a piece of wood or whatever, and they think that's the whole theory. And I think that drives me crazy, because I think that it's a misrepresentation of the breadth of the way we're thinking about this, and it leads to people saying, "Oh, well, that could be dismissed," and it's only one of many different hypotheses being laid out. I just think we haven't said this is the definitive version of what we think happened. We think there are a few different possibilities. And so that's very bothersome to me, and I think, again, a sign of a logic problem, in the water, but it's a serious problem, in my opinion. And but people don't like things that take a long time. I mean, like, hence the multiple hour show. The reality is that that we can't help ourselves. We can't do sound bites. That's the way it works.
Stop me before I talk again.
Right, and because these are things that require a lot of intricate thought.
Yeah.
I have to say, Chris, I took a little umbrage with the statement that somebody made, that we are from a different generation and therefore do not think like modern people about kidnapping. First of all, we're from a variety of generations. But secondly, I don't think that's true. I found that very ageist. And I think that cases got solved for a long time before modern technology. I mean, you guys solved them, right? I mean, didn't you guys work that way? I mean,
there was no DNA. There was no digital analysis we had. We went out and pounded on doors and wore out shoe leather. And it worked. It worked, and we were students of people. We learned about people. And none of us would have a degree in psychology, but we have a practical application that we could take. You know, and what's more, I know these two guys, they can read people like a book.
Oh yeah, I know. God only knows what they say behind closed doors. But the thing is, in all seriousness, you guys get what I'm saying? Like, you know, it underestimates your abilities. It's like suggesting that, you know, I don't know what, like we're a bunch of old farts that couldn't solve a case. Like I just don't agree with
it. Underestimated.
Right. I just don't agree with that.
We used to work with a guy named Bob Pratt, who was a survivor of the Chosin Reservoir in Korea.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Where the Chinese overran these Marines, and they were hitting them with shovels.
Oh God.
Here's a question, right? Who do you want when all heck breaks loose around you? Do you want some kid that did a go ogle, which is Google, ask for direction through Grok to have Grok, you know, give the AI answer, or Chat GPT? You know, do you want that guy to tell you when to pull the trigger? Or do you want a guy that hit the Chinese with a shovel in a war and came out and survived?
And was a heck of a detective.
This generation today that chimes in like that, good luck. You guys can't figure out how to tie your shoes yet. And when you do, you'll call guys like us that can resolve it for you. And by the way, it's just two little circles that you make, and you put them, and then you twist them.
It's the bunny going through the hole.
It's not rocket science. You guys are the best. We'll see. We're going to do this. We'll do another one. What, Gary? Finish your thought.
I say that we should tell people about where they can get John's book. And
yes. I'm sorry. Please forgive me, John.
Real quickly, I want to thank everybody who has purchased the books, and I've seen comments here about how they've enjoyed it, and it's an honor to have folks like you read it and enjoy it. My books are down below. They're on Amazon, Service with a Sneer, Beach Blanket Bedlam. I'll be letting Chris know the next book will be coming out later this month. It's called Bring Out Your Dead, and I'm already at work on the book after that, which will be Sun, Surf, and Savagery. So, and Bring Out Your Dead will be a lot of, for those of you who've read the first two books, there was a lot of humor, a little bit less humor because I'm talking about homicide cases and an SA investigation. But if you want a sense of how we did those investigations, the book will cover that. And both Gary and Chris have read that.
Yeah, and you should say, John, that the Edgar, you know, the Edgar recognized Edgar nominee. Diane Fanning. Reviewed your book and praised it also, and did a blurb and everything, which is, you know, she's an enormous following and countless books. And she thought it was great. It
was humbling to have her blurb. I would reject your description of me as being mischievous. I consider myself more just a snarky clown. But
who is mischievous?
I called him mischievous in my blurb.
Yeah, he called me mischievous, which is like a dignified way of saying snarky clown.
Well, you've got I like that you're a great balloon pricker. You're like, everybody is sort of inflated, and you come and you go poop, just pop it. But but the writing is great, and
But I mean it in the best way, really. I love
but you
people.
are the great leveler, the great balloon pricker.
Thank you.
Yeah, John is quite the pricker.
That's
Yes,
right.
he is.
Yes.
All right.
And,
You're only one syllable too long.
Gary, where can they get your book?
I wasn't going to go there, but
well, that's so funny. Well, first of all, the show that we were talking about earlier, that's it's going to be 9 p.m. On Wednesday. I know here in New York, that's Channel 11. You'd have to look up what it is, but it's easy to find because I know there's a lot of interest in that. That's a sort of like a rundown of the whole case, and then talking to people about opinions that have been stated about it. The New Evil you can get in pretty much any major bookstore. Most people seem to buy it on Amazon. And Chris and I are, we have a book in the works about the Foundation. When that comes out, we hope everybody will pre-order it on Amazon or elsewhere. It's always great when people pre-order books. And I'm working on a follow-up to the New Evil. So thank you to everybody who continues to buy it. I'm extremely grateful, and especially that it's recognized by academics and professionals and also lay readers, and that I think is a great thing.
Bob, are you fishing?
No, not fishing. I am getting an inkling for a little beach time, so a visit to Carlsbad could be in order here soon. But I have no books to sell. I don't have a podcast, but I encourage everyone to go into the notes here and check out Karen's skincare products and make sure that you pick those up.
Wow.
I love you. That's
awesome.
That's it. Oh my gosh. Oh man.
I don't even know.
She's not getting enough play with
So
that,
I'll tell you, I married way up on that girl, and man. And just to answer that kid earlier too, by the way, this is the generation that we came from. We followed these guys. This is my mother and father. My father was also a chosen Marine. He was one of 15 guys in Fox Company that came out of the chosen reservoir. So those of you who know me, I'm a little, snarky every once in a while. I can be intense at times. That's because I had two Marines as parents.
That'll do it.
And they are both they're both buried in Arlington National Cemetery. So when you're in Washington, D.C., and you go to Arlington, go to section 34, 3574 is my parents' graves. Okay. And you tell them your son sent you. Their son sent you. And this generation that's here, when I was a young kid, my parents would both say, go sit next to that older guy and learn a little bit about life. Because this generation can teach you a lot. If you'll notice those ribbons up there, my father fought in World War II. He fought in Korea, and he fought in Vietnam. He had 4 tours in Vietnam. He's got all kinds of ribbons up there he was at a Marine Corps ball one time, and a full colonel walked up to him and he said, Top, he said, can I look at your salad bar? And he says, yes, sir. And he looked at it, and this colonel said, sir, he said, some of these I've never seen before. And my dad's response to a full colonel in 06 in the United States Marine Corps, he said, sir, in all due respect, you weren't even alive. Okay. Love you guys. Aloha. See you on the next one. Continue to take care of one another.
Thank you. Good night.
Hard working every day. I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts. Wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah. Make special memories together. I'll be your company now and taking away, yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now, we're taking away, yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down, we're going away, yeah, we're going away, you and me. Feeling the sun on my face in a while.
Where did it go? The warmth and the smoke when we were standing in the parking lot. Your mother used to swear a lot. I got gum in my head, a crowd in my head, but you helped me filling in the blanks. Knew just where your mind was at, but guess whatever happens, happens. Now there's an awful lot of guessing. Say one thing we have in common. It's like my teeth just cannot stop it. And I don't mind when suddenly comes small talk. Why the facade? To piece it apart back when your brother used to play guitar. We steal his songs and call them ours. Now gone, we got in between. Never closer than how you've been, and I question my own sanity. If none of it was ever real, 'cause guess whatever happens, happens. When did we stop knowing each other? Say one thing we have in common. It's like my teeth just cannot stop it. I don't mind when suddenly comes small talk. I don't mind when suddenly comes small talk. I don't mind when suddenly comes small talk.